using this equipment right here, which you can acquire up there in the corner where Willie is waving. If you want to listen to the program in Spanish or Haitian Creole. And it's very simple to use. They can also help you with that. But there's a power button here. You have to be plugged to the headphones. And then go to channel 1 for Spanish or 10 for Haitian Creole. If you have any questions, you can ask Willie, or you can come downstairs and talk to us, and we'll help you. Buenas noches a todos y todas. Me llamo Camilo. Estoy aquí con mi compañera Lourdes. Somos de la compañía Marv Language Services para proveer servicios de interpretación esta noche. Vamos a estar utilizando este equipo. Para utilizarlo, si quieren escuchar en español, simple y sencillamente lo encienden en el botón de en medio, Power, y van al canal 1. O si quieren escuchar en criollo haitiano, van al canal 10. Tiene que estar conectado a los headphones. Si tienen alguna pregunta, también Willy le puede ayudar con cualquier pregunta que tenga, o pueden también bajar y hacernos la pregunta a nosotros. Ahora mi compañera va a hacer el anuncio en criollo haitiano. Gracias.
Merci, bonsoir tout le monde. Nous sommes c'est Lourdes avec Mob Language Service et assoir avec compagnie Camilo. Nous allons assurer pour nous interprétation dans la langue créole haïtienne avec en espagnol. Donc, sous ta remettant des programmes en créole, nous demandons d'autant plus souple, retourner en roi avec Willy. Et puis, c'est la bon petit équipement. Aussitôt qu'on connecte, on va mettre le sous canal au besoin. Donc, pour tendre en créole haïtien, on va mettre le sous canal 10. Et sous besoin tendre en espagnol, on va mettre le sous canal 1. Donc, on va juste peser bouton pour l'humélie. Aussitôt que l'humélie, on peser sous côté qui marque CH là pour canal là et puis on choisit 1 pour espagnol ou bien 10 pour créole. Donc, nous disons merci déjà et bonne participation. Oui. Et tout, nous avons un monde là qui a fait interprétation pour nous en signe. Monde qui ne peut pas parler, qui ne peut pas attendre, un interpréteur qui a fait interprétation en langue signe.
Y disculpen, se me olvidó decir que también tenemos interpretación en lenguaje de señas americano, aquí a la par. Sorry, I also forgot to say that we have American Sign Language interpretation as well. Thank you.
All right, everyone got here. Let's clap it up for that. Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Pérez Art Museum Miami. It's so wonderful to be gathered here at the museum and virtually for those of you watching live on YouTube. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. My name is Marie Vickles. I'm the Director of Education, and I'm delighted to welcome you for tonight's program, Points of View with 3 Points and Brainville. Tonight, in partnership with 3 Points, we will host a series of discussions exploring ideas of how to better bridge the gap between music industry leaders and the up-and-coming generation of aspiring artists here in Miami. This evening's panel discussions will feature industry guests addressing topics that pose challenges for music artists in Miami, including distribution, artist finances, marketing strategies for releases, and artist profiles, booking inquiries, artist management, event organizing, and most of all, community development. This program is broken into 3 panel discussions with a different moderator for each topic. Tonight's 3 panels will be moderated by House of Pris, Aramis Loe, and Tara Long. The first panel, entitled Music, will be featuring Danny Days, Nick Leon, Silent Addy, Coffin Text, and Jenna Balf. This will be followed by an interview with David Sinopoli, 3 Points Music Festival founder, and will conclude with a panel entitled Community featuring Ashley Venom, Ultra Anthem, Victor Pinichota, Coloma Kabumski, these are tongue twisters, y'all, and Sister System. Outside on the terrace, enjoy a specially selected music program presented by Brainville featuring AGGQ+2, Arturo Garcia Guitar Quartet +2. A few acknowledgments before we get started. A very special thank you to the incredible team of people here at PAMM whose ideas and work contribute to the amazing educational programming that you're experiencing tonight. A big shout out to our dynamic audiovisual team and artist musicians in their own right, Andrew Bird and Denise Faxis. Thank you for suggesting this as a program to bring to PAMM. I would also like to acknowledge Anita Bram, Associate Director of Adult and Public Programs, who has worked tirelessly to ensure a fantastic experience for everyone tonight. And big thank yous also go out to Lázaro Yanes on video and cameras, our marketing, visitor services, security, Verde restaurant and maintenance teams. We literally could not do this without all of them. So thank you. Now, without further ado, please join me in giving a warm welcome to our first panel.
Check, check. 1, 2, 1, 2.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. I'm Aramis, and I'm here with some of my dear friends like Danny Days, who's trying to be a slightly bad influence on all of us. And
Yeah, I think before we start, I think we just wanted to cheers, and so we had a little to loosen us up a little bit. So, cheers.
cheers. Cheers. Good stuff. Anyways, tonight we're here to talk about music, something that's pretty close to me in my life. I grew up in the music world in many ways. And so I'm very happy to be here with some of my dear friends and colleagues and people that are very vital to our scene here in Miami and its growth in the local community and also globally. I think we have amazing talent here, and it's great to be sharing this stage with them and learning from them, actually. It's good to learn from these people. So I'm going to get started right away. I guess the first question, and I think it's a good question for all of us to understand, is where all these artists come from. What sort of irked them? What got them sort of? What lit that fire that they woke up one day and they're like, I want to do music. And so I guess I'm going to start that off with a very old, well, very young and dear friend of mine, Jenna Balf. So Jenna, how did we land here today?
Well, hello everybody.
The idea is just a brief intro, sort of kind of what got you going, and I'd like to sort of hear everyone's sort of take on it. Yeah.
Sure. So let's see. I actually started writing poetry, and that was something I really loved. And then my dad was like, "Why don't you sing your poetry?" I was like, "Okay." So I tried to do that for a little bit. I was doing like Electro Clash in the year 2003. If anyone remembers that stuff.
Of course.
Then I took a long break, and then I started a band with my partner, Dennis Fuller. He's somewhere over there. And it's called Donzi, and that's what we do. We're Donzi. We're like performance art, post-punk, funk, dance, electro. We're a lot of things, yeah. And that's how I found myself here.
Great. Addy?
Yeah, so I got into music by spending my summers and Christmas in Jamaica, because I'm Jamaican, and I did school up here, and sound system thing is like huge. So I'm a DJ producer, but DJing is like a huge part of the culture in Jamaica, so that's kind of how I got into music, just spending time in Jamaica. And, over the years, evolved into like starting a brand that's called Bashment.
Great brand,
right
by
now.
the way. Nick?
I got into music because it was just around the house always. It was just a thing that was constant in my life. And yeah, my older brother had like some production software, Fruity Loops, on his computer. And one day I just decided to kind of like steal it off of his laptop and put it on the family computer. And yeah, just started tinkering away in secret. It was kind of like a video game for me. It just got really obsessive with it, and yeah, I just wanted to learn every way possible.
Do you remember where it started? Was there a point where you were like, was it messing around with drum sounds, synth sounds, pads? What sort of
When I learned how to sample stuff.
sample?
was
So it was
definitely-
sample-based stuff.
Definitely, yeah.
which is great. It's a great way to start because it's almost like a DJ role because you're really like DJs. What do? They curate music. You're curating sound in order to construct music, which is a great approach to music, which I find that really fascinating.
Yeah.
Alex?
I got into music mainly because my mom was a singer and my dad was a drummer, and he used to collect a lot of music, so they really always encouraged that part, like that side of me, persistent. So I was always like in the studio with my mom and constantly surrounded by music in that way.
So she was a working musician, or?
Yeah, she would tour all around Lima.
Oh, that's great. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
And your dad, were they in a band together, or?
No, my dad would just play like in a lot of bands in school. So
Awesome. That's great to hear. So inspired by your parents.
basically, yeah.
Great. Danny?
So I got into music super early. I have a video of me at 4 years old saying that I was going to be a musiquero. That's not an actual word, but I was going to be a musiquero at 4 years old. And I used to hear, my dad was part of a kind of an opera crew out here. And I would hear him sing opera in the house, and then he had a salsa band as well. So I found myself just surrounded by music consistently, kind of basically like every single one of us. And I think everybody that's here is probably on the same tip where we like music. I ended up here by mistake. I ended up doing all of this by mistake, but I knew that music was going to be part of my life. And yeah, thankfully I'm here. It started with that, with my father. Then I got into breakdancing. As soon as I started breakdancing, I was always the one picking the music. So it just led that way. I'm pretty sure I used to breakdance at your clubs back in the day. I definitely did.
I think I kicked you out a couple of times.
A couple times, yeah. So yeah, I went from breakdancing, being the person that chose the music for me and all my homies, to just being like, all right, I guess I'm a DJ now. And yeah, I went from there to just making music.
That's great to hear. I'm curious, just since this is kind of not really in the line of questioning that I was sort of thinking of going, but I'll get back to those. But I'm curious as to the creative process, because you're all obviously all creatives. Jenna's take is she starts with lyrics or words-inspired music. Is there anything outside of just strict musical context that inspires your music, or would you say most of you, well, you're inspired by samples that lead you to create music that's yours? Do you all feel like you're sort of fixed to an approach, or does your approach change on a whim or a day-to-day sort of way? Like Alex, do you sometimes start a song from a lyrical point of view, or do you start it from a color or a movie? What inspires that?
I start with drums and percussion.
Drums and percussion.
That's basically my favorite, so I always start with that.
The backbone.
Yeah.
Cool. Addy?
I get inspired by like traveling, like going to other places and like seeing what other people are playing and what other people are listening to, and just kind of incorporate it into what I'm doing. Whether it's music, but fashion, everything, art. I feel like all of that kind of inspire what I do in general.
That's great.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Inspired by moments, the people around you. That's great. Community. Danny?
Yeah, I think
I'm
one
sure
of the
Danny
things,
has something really weird that inspires him.
heartbreak. Heartbreak or struggle. For me, when I started making music, because I felt like this was going to be my only avenue. So I forced myself consistently to wake up, work on music for 12 hours until I made it. Until people like you said, okay, you can come and DJ at my place. And then I started making my own remixes to play at your place. Nowadays, I think, the way that I start making music is I consistently look for something different than my previous influence. So if I was influenced before by a drum machine, the next time I'll go into my phone and see something that I sang on my phone and go off of that. Then the next time after that, I'll start off with a synthesizer. Then after that, I'll go and I'll sample something off of YouTube to consistently try and stay creative rather than falling into like a monotonous way of doing things.
Great. I'm glad you brought that up. So just a general question to all of you. Do you find yourself using some sort of notation or notes or audio memos on your phones when you come up with ideas, or is that sort of a consensus here that we all do that, or is that just me? Or do you just sit?
I keep it in my head. I don't really.
You keep it in your head.
Yeah. And
You
then
never do voice memos.
I do voice memos, like just for vocals that I would want to
Oh, wow.
use in the future, but that's about it. Everything I just like keep in my head as an imagination that I remember, and then put it into the whole process of making music.
That's great.
Yeah.
Cool. So I guess now, kind of getting back to the original thoughts on what we should be talking about, but I'm sure we'll deviate a few times. Being in Miami and being all musicians that have spent most of our time in Miami, what do you feel, very standard question, is the biggest challenge of being a musician in Miami? You want to kick it off, Jenna? I'm going to keep picking you.
Sure. I think the biggest challenge right now for us as a band is not having a studio space.
Yeah.
By studio, do you mean recording studio or practice studio?
Practice studio.
Okay.
We're not, because the prices have skyrocketed so much recently, we can't afford a music studio, and we're just playing like wherever we can. We have no room. It's difficult to be inspired. It's difficult to move around. So I would say, as a musician in Miami right now, that's definitely it. Not having a place to play music.
What about you, Ari?
I think the biggest hurdle here is venues. I don't think Miami has enough venues to host different kind of music, different kind of music, different kind of genres. I feel like everything is kind of just one thing here in Miami, you know? Anytime I leave here, I see so much different vibes going on, like New York, for instance, and then you come back to Miami and everything is just one, the same thing. If you go out in Wynwood right now, every club is reggaeton, which is not a bad thing, but it's we need some diversity, because there's so much people who live here in Miami that want different vibes, you know what I'm saying? So it's hard to find a venue that I can host a dancehall event. I might can get a in the week thing, maybe a Monday or a Tuesday, but to host something on a Friday or a Saturday is almost impossible. You know, people want to go down the weekends, not during the week.
It's interesting that you and Jenna, though it's two different things, they're really related, because it all comes down to real estate and how expensive it is in Miami, especially. What's your take, Nick? Anything outside of real estate?
Yeah, I mean, I was just gonna say the thing that those two have in common is it's real estate. That's really the name of the game here right now. It's kind of just making it difficult for everybody on multiple levels, not just in music. But yeah, as far as not having a practice space or difficulty opening up a recording studio, even, it's just kind of either a multimillionaire big shot studio or very crummy setup. There's really no in between. I feel like that's lacking here for sure.
Alex?
Yeah, that's basically what I'm running into as well, is the lack of studio spaces and also the lack of venues. Same thing with the real estate. Basically everything that they touched on is how I feel about it too.
Danny?
Yeah, thankfully, I have a studio that I've worked quite a while to put together. And that's one of the things that thankfully I don't have to worry about. But what we're doing here is extremely new. This is something that most of us have never done, which is talking, which is having camaraderie. And I think the biggest thing for me over the last maybe 15, 16, 17 years has been camaraderie, has been having people that are around you that are also pushing you. Miami, I hate to say this about the city, but there is a lot of hate where people don't support you because they're not getting something out of it. And what I've intended, at least on trying to do, is making sure that we do all come up as a group and we all come up glued together. And a lot of these guys that I've worked with before kind of know that that's one of the things that I stand for. So the biggest hardship in Miami over the last 15 years has been not having that camaraderie that we want, which is we see it with the Dutch, we see it with the people from the Brits, we see it with Germans. they all come up together. When there's somebody that comes up, they pick them up off the ladder. And thankfully, now we have a platform and we have hopefully the ideology that we're all building where we can all start coming up together.
Is there anything that, this is sort of a collective question, is there anything that you guys feel that makes Miami uniquely a well-poised place for success for musicians at the moment?
Yeah, so...
Do you think like maybe there's an energy? I think, I don't remember the last time I saw so much amazing, and I've been in the scene for a while. And I think we're in a very great place as far as the talent pool that we currently have in Miami. So do you guys agree with that statement, or is there something that what do you think is sort of the driving force right now in Miami? Do you think we have an opportunity to build that camaraderie? And
I think the younger generation is the driving force. I think I was telling Nick the other day, your entire crew and the younger generation is what gave me the second and third wind to be doing this. But what we need to maintain is that camaraderie, because this is what moves all of us together. You've been around for a while. We've seen the IDM stuff. We've seen Audubon Chirac. We've seen, the Phoenicia crew. We know what we had in Miami 20-something years ago, and now it seems to be happening all over again. And it's because of the younger generation, guys like you that are moving me forward 100%. And, that's basically what's pushing everything forward. Yeah.
Great.
I just want to add one thing. I think one thing that I've noticed is missing is a place for young and developing musicians to show. And now with Churchill's missing, I don't know where I would be without Churchill's, straight up.
So we definitely feel that we have more challenges than advantages by far. Correct?
3 points is
Yeah.
awesome.
I think, just things to build on, just things to work on. Nothing's going to be perfect, but we have a very good starting point. Miami is being looked at under a microscope right now.
I think so too.
There's a lot of people around the world. They're like, what is in the water out there? Because the stuff that we have coming out, and it's all different music. Alex makes different music than Nick. Donzie makes different music than Addy. We all make completely different music.
It's a very eclectic crew right here.
But it's all dope. Like straight up, it's all dope.
I think for
really
Miami
dope music.
Sorry. No, I think Miami is it's because it's such a young city. I feel like it's easier if you're doing something new and fresh, you can stand out easier here than if you're like anywhere else. Because I always bring in New York and like LA as an example. There's like everybody is doing kind of the same thing. Like, there's a million people doing dancehall stuff. It's kind of harder to stand out, but like Miami is like, it's not that much. So, it is nice to be here, and everybody wants to come to Miami for sure. But Miami's right now is like seasonal, so like it only really pops off here like Art Basel or Miami Music Week, and then the rest of the year is kind of just like slow season. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what we always, doing weekly events here. I do an event at Blackbird every Sunday, and it's just like slow season for majority of the year. So I don't know. But during the pandemic, everybody was here. Everybody's party was lit. You know what I'm saying? Like, but then when the world opened up, everybody's like, peace. Like, I'll see you at Art Basel.
Party time.
So, talking about, the challenges and advantages of Miami, now getting back to sort of your careers in order to try to understand a little deeper the challenges of you guys as an artist. When you guys are looking to release music, especially now that the world has changed so much and distribution has become so wild, and the approach to releasing has a lot of great new aspects to it, because it's easier to release yourself, but that's a monumental feat in itself. And then you still have labels. Well, with that also a lot of new and emerging independent labels. So I guess my question is, are you guys now more prone to want to search for labels and or self-release as musicians? I'll start with you, Jenna.
We're on I guess we're kind of on 2 labels right now. And that really helps us out. In terms of like self-releasing, it's kind of scary. I don't know. There's so many like things involved in distribution that we've really leaned on the people that want to support us. But I would say that I also know some people that have done it, and they say that it's way better for them, like financially.
Why two labels? I'm curious.
Well, we have our main label is Gray Market Records, and that's where we're putting out most of our new music. But we're also working with another label called Born Losers. They're out of, I know it's a tight name, right? But they're out of Philly, and they're super cool, and we're putting out like some stuff with them next year.
Cool. How do you differentiate sort of who you approach with what?
So Gray Market is like our home. We're like you're like daddy, and we're like, hey, we want to like work with Born Losers or Noir Age. We've put stuff out with Noir Age, another local record label, and we're like, daddy, can we like sleep over at Born Losers? And they're like, yeah, absolutely, it's for you. Our label's awesome. They're just like very like artist positive and.
But is this? Do you make that choice based on? Is it because one sound is super left field versus the other one, which is like your typical go-to sound, or how do you choose which label you? There has to be a.
They kind of choose us.
Oh, they choose you. Okay.
We're kind of like, I don't know. Donzi's funny. We're like very ambitious, but we also just like get kind of like in our own world, and like some, thank God people are like, hey.
You love Donzi. What about you, Addy?
I have my own record label, Bashment Records, and I have
familiar.
distribution through The Orchard, which is owned by Sony. So putting out records like through my label is way easier because I manage an artist named Projects, and he's signed to Warner. And working with a major label is cool, but it also comes with a lot of roadblocks. Like, like if we want to do something that doesn't include Warner, we have to get like a waiver. You have to go through a whole bunch of people. When I'm doing stuff on my thing, like I really make the choices myself. Whatever I want to do is really just getting the paperwork, splits between the artist who I'm working with, and that's just on me. And then, I deal with the marketing. But obviously when you work with like a major label, you have a machine, somebody who does marketing, somebody who gets you like brand deals or whatever, all the things. So when you're doing your own thing, you have to do all that stuff by yourself. You don't really, you are the machine. Yeah.
Great. Nick?
I think it varies like on each release. As far as like electronic music goes, sometimes there's certain things that are easier to just put up. Whether it's like a edit or like something that's just like a DJ tool, it's easier to just put it up on Bandcamp and make a couple bucks on it, instead of kind of like stressing out about who, send it to everybody and hope for the best. But on the other side, I think it's really nice when you have somebody that can just handle, keeping track of who's playing it where, like where the sales are happening, making sure that this record store is stocked with everything. I think it makes for better music at the end of the day if you don't have to worry about how you're selling it too. I think it's like a nice ecosystem to have both, but it does depend on what you want out of it, essentially.
Got you. Do you ever take into consideration maybe when deciding whether to self-release or release through a certain label, like the format of whatever it is that you're trying to release, whether it's vinyl or just strictly digital? Is that something you take into consideration, or?
Yeah, definitely. I've like released with people because they, we worked out a deal where they just handle the vinyl distribution and everything like that. Yeah, because if it's digital most of the time, why not just put it up yourself? Unless you really want it on streaming and it's like a whole thing. It really just depends on the context of the release, I think.
Got you. Is YouTube something you guys consider when you're thinking of distribution? Is that sort of in the
YouTube?
The frame? YouTube, yeah. I'm just curious
not me.
how artists think nowadays, Do you guys think, I'm going to release it on Spotify, Apple Music?
Yeah, it's kind of like a blanket, honestly, nowadays. It's just like all DSPs.
It just hits everything, okay. What about you, Alex?
Yeah, so when you distribute, like we were saying, it goes automatically on YouTube already by itself, like on all the streaming services. But everything they touched on is actually very important and it makes a lot of sense. But like my approach would be, okay, so like if you're self-releasing, you do have to do all the work, but then you have more control, creative control over like the artwork and how you want your project to be presented. And then you can work on your own timeline and, you know, pump out as much as you want, take a break, whatever. But like they were saying, with a label, they have more, you know, more funds to push your record on marketing and things like that. So it just also depends on like exactly how your approach is and like what you would like to do with the project.
Got you. What's your take, Danny?
I guess it depends on the artist. So if you have, I take my time with music, so I don't release too much. But there are some artists out there that are just, they're factories. So like the INVT boys, for example, they release 4,000 songs in a month, right? Okay, I'm exaggerating, obviously,
Savages.
but they release so much that for them, it makes sense to self-release. So you have challenges and you have benefits towards every single release that you do. If you're an artist that wants to tap in to, say, the UK, and you don't have, you're not able to tap into the UK, you should definitely release with a label, because you're automatically tying into their web. You're now able to tap into everything that they've done over the last 15 or 20 years. Something that you're not going to be able to do just by self-releasing. I have issues being able to get music to certain people because they either don't see the promo, they don't see the email, they don't see anything, but if they see it coming from a label that they really like, they'll look at it. So it does, like what Nick was saying, it does come per release and also per the way that you release music.
Great. Yeah. One thing that I kind of heard, you know, from a few of you is, you know, with self-releasing and sort of having that power and flexibility is the fact that the time is yours. So with that in mind, and this is more in the creative aspect of your careers, do you guys, and I'm throwing out the question there generally, do you guys find yourself that it's better to produce your music, well, write and or produce your music with a set timeline, or you ran by the creative process regardless of the timeline?
Yeah, deadline is one of the biggest things for me. I set my own timeline. I set my own deadline just so I can move on to the next project, because if not, you're stuck on the one snare. And you're like, that snare has a frequency that I need to consistently EQ. It doesn't sound right. I'm going to get it mastered, remastered, get it back. No, just set yourself a timeline that's done. Gotcha. And what I've noticed, a lot of the younger generation and even older people that I've always tried to get to release music, they always say the same thing: oh no, this song's not ready. And the idea is sick, and I'm like, dude, just send me this. I'll send me the stems. I'll fix the mix myself. It's never ready. So nothing is ever going to be 100%. And as an artist, you need to come down to that. And then when you see it being played out and you see that everybody likes it, that's where the 100% comes in. You're like, okay, I guess it's finished. And that's the way I think most art should be, because as an artist, we're all a bunch of idiots that consistently want to add more because we're bored of it. We've heard this song 4,000 times already. We've heard it for 40 hours straight. You're going to be sick of that one snare. So stop it. Give yourself a deadline. It has to be done on Sunday. Once it's done, it's done. So, yeah.
Great. What about you, Alex?
That was excellent, everything that you said, because that's what I go by. I like set not hard deadlines, but I try not to get fixated as well, too fixated on the project, because then, like he said, you're never going to release it. So try to set like a kind of like a guide for yourself, a timeline, and be like, okay, this is enough. It's time to release a project, and that's about it.
Nick?
You're
still working on it.
Yeah, literally. I mean, I'm like a procrastinator. It'll literally be like, you know, the week that I have to turn in the record or whatever, and that's when I'm finishing it. You know what I mean? Like, I'll start it months before, and I'll just leave it for a long time. And then when it's due is when I'll finish it. And that's kind of the only, I have to like freak my brain out to actually finish, or it's never gonna happen.
Do any of you have a song that you started 5 years ago and haven't finished yet?
Yes.
I'm just curious.
A million, yeah.
I mean, I know you all have timelines, but I feel like everyone has that one track that's been there for 5 years.
Dude, so some people may know a song that I did called Your Everything.
Yeah.
It came out in 2011. I started that in 2003.
Oh my God.
You see, I knew it.
Yeah, so the answer is yes, definitely.
Oh my God.
Addie?
Yeah. Like, I mean, as an artist, I have my home studio. So, like, we're always working on music. So it's like, luckily I have a team that can help me set deadlines and stuff like that. So I'm focusing on being the artist and creative. So, you know, sometimes there's a lot of times we have deadlines. There's a board in my living room with a bunch of deadlines that just keep getting erased, and then new deadline, new deadline. Like, that's just how it is. But I mean, yeah, you just have to, it's just all about focus, really. I'm learning more, like, the older I get, like, when you focus on one thing, like, if this is a song that I'm trying to, like, put out and, like, promote, I need to, like, focus on that instead of, like, doing a million things, which that's how my brain normally, like, wants to be, you know? I always have a new idea. Every day I wake up, I got 100 new ideas. So it's really just, once you learn focus, like, it gets easier.
What about you, Jenna? How's Donzi? How does Donzi tackle that? Are you guys timeline guys, or?
No, we're not.
I knew it. I knew that.
Surprise. But I will say it's so true. You have to let these songs go, because once you do, you grow.
Yeah.
You know, you get to see it out. You get to see how it actually lives in other people's experiences. And then from there, you're like, oh, like, now I can, like, try this new thing and completely even change as an artist. But if you keep it, you're just going to stay in that same place. So, but yeah, it takes us a while sometimes.
Let me ask you something. Do you have any music you've released that you wish you changed something in it before?
Yes.
Yeah,
That's
me
a great
too.
question, Daddy.
It hurts.
Yeah. You're like,
You hear it and you're like-
everybody likes the song, and you're like, God damn, I wish I could have done
Yes.
this. But that's the art.
That's snare, right?
That's part
snare.
of the art, is knowing when you can release it and just let it go.
Right,
Because if
Danny?
not, you're going to be stuck.
Right, Danny? It's that snare.
That's
snare
snare.
still bothers
Yeah,
you.
that's snare. Yeah.
Anyways, moving on. I lost myself in this conversation. I guess keeping it on the creative front, because I'm definitely more interested in that than the business side of it, though the business is very important, obviously. Blocks. How do you guys deal with mental blocks? I would say writer's blocks, but that's sort of, I feel in our world, production block is probably more prevalent than a writer's block, or at least I feel that. Do you guys feel like you have a lot of blocks, and how do you overcome those? I will start with Nick, since I usually start with Jenna.
I don't really get blocks, but I get burnt out. It's more like that, where it's just like,
Burnt out blocks.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
in the way that I just have to take a break. That's really what it is. Just like do anything but music or anything creative. Just like watch movies or.
Do you find yourself going home and just not having the radio on in the car?
Yeah.
Because you're like,
I listen to noise sometimes, just like the static on the.
that's cool. I relate to that. I do
I don't
too.
know. It's nice.
Cool. White noise or pink noise?
I mean, whatever.
Whatever
Sometimes it has a
kind of
little
noise.
nice like reggaeton going in and out.
That's great.
Oh, yeah.
That's the sweet spot, honestly.
I love
When
it.
you catch like two at the same time.
We should get together and listen to some noise. Jenna, what's up with you? How do you get over your blocks or burnouts?
Well, let's see. Sometimes it's taking a walk.
Yeah.
Sometimes
one.
it's smoking weed. Definitely.
Big.
Had a really big block a couple of months ago, and like I just kept doing the same thing over and over, and I was dying. I knew everyone in the studio was dying, and I was like, hold on, I gotta go outside. I went outside, I smoked a little weed, and I came back in, and one take.
Done. A whole album, one take.
Weed.
Shout outs to weed.
Addie?
Yeah, I guess like
you
not
call
doing
him
the
big
same
shot
thing.
producers.
Huh?
You call him big shot producers.
No, just not doing the same thing. Like, you know, anytime I get into like a routine where I'm just like, anytime I'm in Miami too long, I start getting writer's block or whatever block. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, because, but I feel like anybody anywhere can say the same thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, you definitely, or if I'm like going to only Caribbean parties, you know what I'm saying? Like, every now and then I have to step out and do something different just to get some different inspiration. Just, you know, it's anytime you get routine, you're for sure gonna get stuck eventually.
That's a great lead in, and I'm glad you brought that up. Do you guys step outside of your music world and go to other music worlds in order to inspire what you do in your moment?
Yeah.
All the time, have to.
Yeah.
That's
You know what I'm
great.
saying?
What do
There's
you like? What do you listen to outside of what people know you as or
Like
relate to you as?
everything, like jazz, reggaeton, hip hop, bossa nova, samba, just every classical music, just everything, just to get every influence I can and not get like tired of the same, you know, four on the floor, dance music, reggae, dub influence, all that stuff. Also with like taking a walk outside, you know, going to the beach, completely removing yourself from the project, watching movies, just get back in the game.
That's great.
Yeah.
What about you, Danny?
I think one of the things people take for granted is collaborations. So, and bringing in a younger generation or just having somebody that's never worked with you before in the room. So, like you asked earlier with Edgar with push button objects, he hasn't made music in 20 years, but just having him in the room made me think completely different. So I think I'd mentioned earlier trying to start new projects from something completely different than the time before. If you started something with a drum machine, the next time go outside and step on leaves and record that and try and make music from you stepping on leaves. But for me, lately has been collaborations, having people come inside my studio and just and go from there, try and take their approach and use it as my approach as well. That is something that a lot of people just don't do because they want to be their own artist, but this is the way that you can definitely exponentially grow as an artist.
That is great. Well, you've been doing it for a long time, so you're definitely good at it.
Trying, yeah.
Now, related, I guess, to the career of artists, obviously you guys are well on your way already, obviously with your challenges and your advantages, as anyone in your position would be. If you would start it again, would you approach the music different, or is there a misconception that you thought, you know, music would be, your career would be this way, that way? What would be a call out or a highlight that you would give to any starting musician or producer, you know, that wants to sort of follow in the footsteps that you guys have taken? I'll start with Jenna.
Oh man.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Stop. Go into something that makes you money. No, I'm kidding. I guess if I could start differently, I think, man, what would I do? It's tough. More confidence, you know? Just you gotta be as confident as you can be. Like the first song, just like the first song you make that's like pretty decent, just send it to everybody. I don't know. Don't wait. Just go.
That's great.
That's so good.
Addie?
Yeah, no, confidence is definitely a big thing. But as far as like my journey, like I love the journey that I've been on. Like I wouldn't change anything because I feel like I get better with time. And this whole thing is about like being a musician is all about evolving. I've been saying that a lot lately. There's a lot of people who just don't evolve and end up fading away. But once you, over the years, like, you know, I've built confidence. So, you know what I'm saying? I always never, even though I'm not fully confident with everything I do, but then I can walk into a room and be like, I know what I bring to the table, you know? So I feel like, yeah, once you can evolve and keep evolving, like you'll never get stale.
Nick?
I think less overthinking. I would definitely, if I could do anything over, that part, because yeah, a lot of times just like getting really neurotic over tracks that nobody's gonna hear the difference in the thing that
That
you're doing.
snare.
Yeah,
That snare really
that,
loves.
yeah. And just yeah, I'm pretty happy with how everything has turned out too. I think it's nice when you have like a little bit of a journey.
That's great.
Uh,
Do you feel the love in Miami in terms of being a
Definitely.
musician?
yeah, for
That's
sure.
great.
For sure.
Yeah. That's a really great thing, actually, for all of you out there, because Miami hasn't always been in that place.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's I think we're in a really good place right now. Even with all our challenges, I think just the camaraderie, like Danny expressed earlier, it's definitely a big improvement that I think will speak volumes as we move forward. I'm very hopeful in that, actually. Alex?
What's important is a lot of patience, confidence, but not confidence to the point where you're like delusional, but make sure you believe in yourself, and don't compare yourself to any artist or anyone around you. Just do what feels natural to you and everything will be okay.
Gotcha.
I think for the younger artist, it would depend on what you're trying to be. So if you're trying to be this person that just has an exponential and meteoric rise, you'll start at the top. But once you're at the top, it's very hard to get respect from the bottom, right? So I, unfortunately, which took me a long time to kind of build respect, I started at the top with a couple big records. I think the best thing to do is start from bottom and go up and slowly build your foundation as an artist. And what you do, whether it's you paint, film, or music, is people understand who you are, because when you're building that foundation, those people that are slowly ride or die for you, they're always going to be there for you. So yeah, that's what I would say to kind of the younger artist, is kind of build your foundation.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm glad you agree. So I guess I'm close to wrapping this up. This has been really great, but I guess one of the last things I sort of wanted to touch on was more on the business side of things in music. And I wanted to get your feedback from all of you as far as like, do you feel if there was anything you could change in sort of the music world right now as it relates to your place in Miami and in the music industry in general, do you think what do you think is lacking? Is it access to financing? Is it access to better distribution? Is it access to what's missing that you think, or what could be improved to make your careers better within our community? I'll start with you, Danny. Yeah.
Probably royalties and the way that artists are paid out. So usually labels, major labels and stuff like that, they're getting 90% of everything that you do.
When you say royalties, are you speaking across the board, or are you speaking mechanical versus?
Yeah, a lot of people are doing 360 deals, which they get absolutely everything from you. But I think now we're living in a world where it's really hard to get your music out. So the way that we're touring, this is how you make your money. So we're making money by going out, busting our ass, doing 100-something shows a year, or whatever it is, and not getting paid properly. Gotcha. And this is where we're going to get
getting paid properly on the royalty side of things.
Royalties, but also even the amount of money that you're getting paid. If you're a band, you're struggling right now.
Yeah, you're right.
You are struggling right now. And as a DJ that's playing other people's music, you're making a lot more money because of social media, however it is, you sell tickets. So, as an artist, I think what needs to happen now, and I see it somewhat happening, is the Web3 world is coming in. And this is where we get into crypto and all that stuff and NFTs and all that. But I do think artists in general need to kind of tap into that, because that's going to be the next movement, where we're going to be able to kind of use the decentralized world to our advantage. So, yeah.
I hope so. Let's see. What do you feel that challenge is, Alex?
I think what he touched on too is like, the royalties, you don't get enough, like a substantial amount of money, so you have to rely on touring and maybe selling merch. Bandcamp's a good one as well, but that definitely is a major issue right now.
Great. Nick? Noise.
Could you,
It's all-
could you repeat the question? It was like a few. It was just like what's
the noise.
lacking?
Yeah, what's lacking? If you think there's something lacking that helps, with your careers as an artist, is it, better distribution, the financing? I think financing is one of the big
Yeah,
parts,
I was
like
gonna say-
royalty distribution. But I just wanted to get your sort of
Yeah.
thoughts on that.
I'd definitely say financing. Like there should be way more money being put into music and art in general in the city, at least.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people claim to be for it, but are just kind of getting their big piece of the pie, unfortunately. But yeah,
true.
I think more of that.
I definitely agree with that. I think again, I don't think we should rely on the government much, but I think government, especially our local community, should be subsidizing music a lot more than they currently do.
For sure.
Instead they subsidize other pretty worthless things. What about you, Ari?
I don't think the music business is ever going to really be perfect, but there's so much ways to make money nowadays, like with the internet, like social media. You just have to it's not easy, obviously, because if it was easy, everybody would have been doing it. But I think one of the biggest things, if we're talking about Miami, I think we need a Grand Central back. I think that would help. I think that would.
Yeah.
That's a start. Make some money for some upcoming artists.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Nice shout out.
Grand Central birth.
He's looking for financing, it's obvious. Tana?
I think subsidies for artist spaces would be huge. Subsidies for music in general in Miami would be a huge help, because I feel like there is some help through different art institutions for more visual arts. There's the Miami Light Project for performing arts, but music, there's just really not as much. So that'd be a big help. I've always thought about like unionizing. I don't know how crazy that would be, but like, for example, like on tour, I'm just gonna tell you guys.
Tell us.
We're like a usually 3 to 4 piece band. A touring band got paid $42.33. What is that? A touring band. Like you couldn't have rounded it up to $45?
It's not easy.
Rough.
It's not easy being Donzi. That's a new track. Anyways, I think the most important thing that we should all take away from this panel is the fact that Danny said earlier, and it's the fact that we're having these conversations, and I think this is where it all starts. I think with that in mind, and I think you guys all here being the youth and the leaders of this movement, and thank God for institutions like 3 Points and Space and all these wonderful clubs that we do still have here and that support local music, is to find ways beyond PAMM, which is very honored to be here and to have them support this whole thing. But I think it's continuing the conversation forward, and I think we should all walk away from this feeling empowered and feeling positive about the fact that we have a great thing going, and we just got to keep talking and pushing each other forward in a positive way. Danny, any closing statements?
Yeah, don't wait to put out your music. Don't wait to put out your art. Just put it out. And somebody's going to come back and take you under their wing and be like, yo, let me help you, or let me not help you. You're sick. You're dope as hell. And just put out your music. Don't wait. Because there's so many sick artists out there that do have a blockade that tends to be their own judgment. Don't. You just release music. It might be horrible. Somebody's going to come in and say, do this, do this, do this. Let me help you out. And yeah, just release your music.
Let it go.
Alex?
Just let it go. Just whatever you have, whatever you're overthinking, for real, just let it go. Don't be afraid.
That's your new track, Let It Go. I love it. Nick?
That Miami's actually doing great creatively right now. At the end of the day, like, we have our issues and everything like that, but it's an amazing time to
I
be
love
here.
that. That's very great.
Yeah, big up to Miami. But like Danny said earlier, definitely collaborations. I think we don't sleep on collaborations. That's a big thing. Like if you can collaborate outside of what you do, it can expand your audience as well too. So yeah.
Yeah, Addie definitely collaborates a lot. So does Danny. I mean, I'm sure all you do, but I know you guys definitely are pretty extensive about it. Jenna?
I think this is awesome. This definitely, I feel the love from Miami, and like this is a great way to keep moving for music here.
It is. Look at this room. Look at how many people are in here interested in what's going on. That's
Big up to David Sonopoli.
it's a great look. So, I think for the last few minutes that we have, we're gonna open up the floor for a Q&A. I'm not sure how that works, but
Yeah, so just wait
there's
for
a
the mic
microphone
to
floating
come
around the room, and this is open to all the panelists. So.
Just raise your hand and we'll bring a mic. That way everyone can hear you both in the room and on YouTube.
So, what do you guys think about the lack of venues right now?
Lack of what?
What do you guys think about the lack of venues right now?
Yeah, I definitely feel like we need more venues because, for instance, like a lot of big artists don't come to Miami because they can't sell out the venues that we have here. So like if you can't sell out the American Airlines Arena, you got to go to Fort Lauderdale, which they got like a club revolution. I don't think we don't have no middle ground, so a lot of people skip here. Even though we have venues, but it's just not enough. So we definitely need more.
Well, we need more because for two reasons. It creates competition, which healthy competition is always the best for the fans at the end of the day. As an owner, and I'm an owner, I know we kind of hate it, but it's you can't hate it. You have to go with, at the end of the day, you got to believe in the music, and that's why I got in the business that I'm in. It never had to do with money. I made money from it, but it was never about the money, and I have to, and all owners that are listening out there, you always have to remind yourself, it's not about that extra dollar, it's about doing something for your community that drives it forward. And I think having healthy competition in a market, inevitably everyone wins. It makes you operate better, it gives fans a better experience, and it gives the bands touring and the local community of musicians more platforms and more outlets for them to communicate with their audiences. So that's my take on it.
We're going to get one down here.
Let Marie take one in the front.
Okay. So I have a question. As an aspiring musician that's working on music for the first time, what is the best way to get in touch with labels or people that can help you as if you don't know that well, or to have a label kind of help push a release or something like that,
The age of the internet is really easy. You know one person that knows one person. If your music is on point, or if your music is good enough that somebody is willing to listen to it, they will. It's not like back in the day where you had to know somebody that knew somebody that can get a CD or something down. I think nowadays it's really easy. You just have to really focus, making sure you have a target. And if you want that target, you go for that target, because if you have worked hard enough, the hard work is going to be looked at. It's not even the music that's going to be looked at, it's the hard work and the potential. Like from me owning a label, what I look at it from an A&R standpoint is what's the potential of this person, not are these people already insanely dope? Because I kind of don't want that. They already have their thing going. So you have it, there's a couple degrees of separation between what you want to do and where you're at now. Yeah.
I think, again, you're more active in that world than I am, but I think also spreading your net as much as you possibly can. Don't get fixated on one label or one, person. You have to go wide with it, because that's the only way. And you have to be borderline annoying without being annoying.
And use Instagram too. Instagram is a major tool. You can find emails on there. Just reach out to, other artists and people that inspire you. It's pretty easy, so.
So I think everyone is a bit, we're all aware of the lack of resources and the lack of venues, especially as of late. I think it causes a lot of people to leave the city, talented people, and go somewhere else. So my question is, what keeps you guys here in Miami?
Good weather.
Yo, Miami, man, 305, ride till I die, bro.
Yeah.
I mean, where else are we gonna go?
Yeah.
Well,
We're up here.
I'll tell you, I mean, I'm not speaking on their behalf, but just my take on it is I could have left Miami. I wanted to change it, and maybe I'm a little crazy, and I wanted to change it at a time that it was very difficult, and I had no money, and I knocked on a lot of doors and pulled a lot of favors, and I worked a lot. I mean, in crazy times.
Would
crazy
you
hours.
all agree that this Miami has a lot of subconscious influence where we
Yes.
don't necessarily
The
need
swamp.
to even we have the heat, we have mosquitoes, we have a bunch of different reggaeton music playing in
Everything.
Palacio Los Jugos, and then we have your all these subconscious influences is what keeps me here. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, me too. I grew up here, so.
Yeah, Miami's
a lot
home
of-
for me still. That's why,
Yeah.
There's
There's a lot of room for growth for everybody. So.
There is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's like so much literal growth, like the humidity and the subtropical flora and fauna. It's
Mushrooms.
just like,
Mushrooms.
yeah, it's luscious.
Ayo, I have a question right over here. First of all, I just want to say thank y'all for pulling up and sharing your thoughts on the industry and stuff. I appreciate the business side of it as well as the creativity. I just wanted to ask 2 questions if I could. One of them I guess is kind of a basic question, but in terms of instrumentation, where do you really start? Because I know there's midis and loopers and stuff like that to start start that creative process and have that ball start rolling, but if you guys could comment on what you might have started out with and maybe different ways as to acquiring things like that, because sometimes it's out of budget or it is what it is. So if you guys can comment on that. And also I know that some of you have your own labels and self-release, so if you guys can comment on how difficult it is to, or what the process looks like to establish your own record labels. If you guys can comment on those 2 things, I know that's loaded, but yeah, for sure.
Well, if you're interested in equipment and stuff like that, you can look into used products that could be very useful to you at the beginning, if you don't have a lot of money. And as for a label, I have my own label, but the important thing is that I found a good distribution. Their name is Seed. It's very small, based out of New York, and he's very centered around the artist, making sure that he pushes the labels, but that's why he keeps it very small. So if you run into something like that, or that would be very essential. Also, if you want to just start releasing your own stuff, I started with DistroKid, and then from there you just move on or whatever if you'd like, but yeah.
The internet is your friend.
Yeah.
That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah. It's a
YouTube
tool.
University. You can do whatever you
YouTube.
want with that. You can
Reddit.
do brain surgery with that. When it comes to don't try surgery
all
from
there.
YouTube. Yeah, no. When it comes to stuff that you want to use to make music, you don't need anything. You have
Yeah.
Ableton, which is, I don't know how much it costs nowadays, or you can get it cracked. But you don't really need that much. There's always a scapegoat of I don't have this, so therefore I can't finish it. Yeah, that's bullshit. You can finish an entire project that is sick as hell with just Ableton, just the basics. Even GarageBand, to be honest.
Sure, yeah.
Just the pure basics. When it comes to self-distribution, which is the one, what was it called? DistroKid.
DistroKid.
DistroKid's amazing. You just upload, they don't need to accept you. I believe Seed kind of needs to take you on.
Yeah,
right?
they
They need to take you on.
Yeah.
But DistroKid, you just upload your own stuff, and all of a sudden it's on Spotify. Therefore, that you can put it on your stories on Instagram. Therefore, your friends might start sharing it. There you go, word of mouth. That's the biggest thing nowadays. Press and stuff like that. You don't need that nowadays. People don't really read much press anymore. It's all word of mouth, and that's why I think Miami is thriving. Is because we all talk about each other's stuff. And, yeah. So.
And everything I've made previously has just been on Ableton. Like I recently just got a drum machine and like a synthesizer, so you can do a lot with that program by itself.
And also, just one more thing, Donzi actually started because my partner was teaching me drums, so he would teach me drums and play bass, and so it can be a really earnest beginning, like just trying to learn something.
Mm-hmm.
Hello? This is okay. I know this is like a super basic question, but I'd love to hear it from all of you. So if you want to like start from one way or whatever, but if you could collaborate with anybody, who would it be?
Andre 3000.
I want to work with Young M.A.
Bad Bunny.
Young M.A. Bad Bunny's a good one too.
I mean, there's so much artists, like in every genre I can think of one or multiple, but probably like a Burna Boy or somebody like that.
Yeah.
Oh man, I don't know. It'd be pretty tight to collab with David Byrne.
Hell yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi. Oh, did I interrupt you?
Hi. How do you feel about collaborating with video creators, and how open are you to it? Let's say if they were reaching out to you.
All day, every day.
Yeah, I'm open. I'm open to that.
Yeah, I think it can add to your art just in general. Especially if it's an actual collaboration where you're bouncing ideas off each other, not just sending them a song and they send you something back. If you're in the studio together, which I'm actually working on something like that right now for the planetarium at Frost, December 1st, guys. By the way.
Shameless
plugging
plug.
it in.
Plug it.
Shameless plug.
But that experience has been actually really eye-opening when it comes down to dynamics, when it comes down to like how much volume to put in music, what it is that you want to share, what it is that what you're trying to express past the ears. So yeah, I love it. I just don't know many people in Miami that actually do these sorts of collaborations. So hit me up. Yeah, word. Yeah, word.
Okay, I'll go. Hi. So I really appreciate how you all have been talking about the logistical side of things. As a visual artist, I feel like we tend to just kind of get lost in our own heads about how we and why we make things, and half the room doesn't understand what's going on. But on that note, I do want to bring up an issue that's affecting all of us here in Miami, which is the climate crisis. A lot of you were talking about how the real estate market or a lot of much more like socioeconomic issues are affecting your practice. But another one that it seems maybe a little bit more out of our control is the climate crisis. I mean, we all like had to deal with flooding just to get here. Is there any ways that your practices are being affected by the climate crisis?
Depression.
Yeah, that part.
More creativity.
Seriously.
Times two.
I mean, I do. I mean, besides from like producing and DJing, I actually throw my own events, and I did an event in Fort Lauderdale last week, a pool party. Promoted it for like a month, and then obviously it rained.
Yeah.
So that obviously affected the turnout, but that's just like a part of doing events in Miami. It's always been a thing. I've thrown so much events, and weather has messed it up. It's like a gamble. I always say throwing events in Florida is definitely, or just doing events in general is a gamble. Okay, you never know what anything can mess up your thing, but definitely weather is the worst enemy because Miami people do not leave their house if it's raining.
Well, not just that, the streets flood and then you you pretty much can't get there.
Thank you guys for coming out. I know we know it was raining like crazy, so
Yeah,
thank you guys.
Speaking of which.
All right, just one last question. I didn't know if you guys had spoke about this in the beginning. I came in a little bit later, but I wanted to ask you guys something. So, in the final stages of making your music, right, when it comes to mixing and mastering, towards your mixes, do you tend to mix creatively, or do you look for more of a commercial mix?
I just do it creatively. I learned how to mix through just watching my friends and also on YouTube. So I don't really have like a industry or commercial approach to it. I just do it by ear to what I think is going to sound good, how I want it to sound in the club. I do car tests, headphones, and when I'm satisfied with it is when I finalize it personally.
For mixing, I have somebody who mixes all my records who, like, I just know they have the ear and they align with the same vision as me. So when I send it to them, they know exactly what I want and how I want it to sound. But like a big thing is arrangement. Like, you know, as a DJ, I think arrangement is like huge. Like that's where I really focus on my record first. Like how it starts, the intro, the bridge, the chorus, everything have to make sense when you're playing it inside a party. It's not just like a listening thing. That's how I kind of.
Yeah, I think like good sound selection in the beginning saves you a lot of headache later on when it comes to like mixing and that kind of thing, especially with electronic music. If you have a good sound from the beginning, you don't really have to mix, in my experience. It's kind of just takes up the frequency space that it needs to.
Yes.
We work with someone consistently, George Elbrecht. He's awesome. Shout out to George Elbrecht. But we find it's often like he always really wants to make the bass like super heavy, and Dennis is always like, oh man, I want it to be brighter. So that's something. And I just wanted to say one thing about the climate crisis thing. It just kind of like hit me like a brick. But we do try to incorporate climate change issues into our artistry. We try to do like fundraising. We try to raise awareness about local issues. It's like actually like, it's pretty much like everything that I care about as a person. So it just, I felt like I really shortchanged that answer a little bit, but yeah.
So I guess the last question is, are there any expectations you feel new artists should form, things that you feel like they have misconceptions over that now with your experience you would like to tell the new and up and coming generation?
I think the younger generation has a sense of entitlement that I hadn't felt before. And, you know, you'll see some people with exponential growth, meteoric rise, and some of the younger artists, you'll see them, they're kind of picked out. They're like, you are going to be a star. You are going to be a star. All of you have to work. Be the people that have to work consistently, because the chances of you just being picked out of a lottery and you know, being part of a narrative that is now working, that does not happen very, very often. That would be my biggest thing. Work like you have to keep working forever. And eventually somebody is going to see you. Somebody's going to say that person is a star. That person does deserve to be here. Rather than starting off just as a DJ, a year later you're playing one of the biggest festivals in the world. As soon as you go up, you're going to go right back down. So it's best to, again, have that foundation and slowly just keep working like you need to work forever.
Yeah, and also like don't expect things to happen overnight too quickly. It takes a lot of time, like especially with music production. Like just because, for example, let's say you made like an album or 2 albums or even 3 doesn't mean that you're entitled to a headline Coachella, you know? So just, it's very important to be patient and, like I said, confident, but not confident to the point where you're like delusional, patience, and don't expect things to happen to you just because you did something or very quickly. Just, you know, take your time and pace yourself.
Yeah, I think just doing the work is the most important. like do it because you like to do it, and it's a thing that you're investing your life in essentially. And eventually it works or it doesn't, but you just keep doing it, you know?
Yeah, the work, just keep doing it. I mean, like, it's true, right? It's just so true. You just gotta do it.
Music
you
is
just gotta
sick.
do it. Yeah.
Yeah, don't expect to bust overnight. You know, that's like just do your thing, and whenever it's your turn, wait your turn. You know,
Yeah.
that's a big part.
I think that's it, right?
That's it.
Thank you all for coming. It's been really great. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Hope you guys are doing okay over there. So many familiar faces. We're gonna get started interviewing Mr. David Sinapoli, founder of 3 Points. And by the end of the interview, we're gonna have a Q&A of 10 minutes. Hi, David.
Hi, how you doing?
Good.
Thanks everyone for coming. This is was an idea that our team came up with to hopefully open up communication and a space for us to talk together. Also, like, just not hold on to all this knowledge that we have. We work really hard, guys. We go from event to event to event, and we haven't really had the opportunity to stop and be like, this is what we learned. This is what we know now, and it's evolved a lot, especially over the last couple of years. So I felt like, and our team together collectively felt like it was important to just slow down and have a moment to talk before things heat back up again before the festival. So thanks for coming.
No, thank you for taking the time to share your experiences, the history of the festival. I'm just wondering how we're gonna run this because I don't speak English and you don't speak Portuguese. Let's try. Okay. So my first question is related to the history. Why would you guys work 363 days a year to put a show that lasts 2 days?
It's a good question, and I could tell you that it's a little masochistic at this point because we know what we're doing. But when we started, we didn't really think about it as like a full-time project. We started with a group of people that had an idea of shining light on our scene and also bringing bands that don't typically come to Miami. We had like Aramis and them were speaking about, and big ups to Aramis because Grand Central and Pop Life were huge parts of the inspiration and are the foundation of why we're here. That whole team really, we saw so many amazing shows that moved us, and we realized that quickly that a lot of people had to avoid Miami because of geographical location. So they would go on a bus and they would go to Atlanta and then they would head west because coming through Florida it's pretty weird up there in the north of Florida. So there's not a lot of like-minded people that might want to see Bjork in Gainesville or Orlando or whatever. So we would have to watch bands leave and not even touch the state of Florida, and the only time we could really bring them in were festival fly-in offers. So between that issue and the issue that Miami didn't really have its own Super Bowl of local acts at the time, in 2013, Tara Long, the staff at Bardot, some friends from The Pickle at the time, and other contemporaries that were around me at the time decided to just do this party that spanned all throughout our neighborhood, and we didn't really know what we were doing. It was kind of like a chaotic event that at the end of it, when we're finished, there was this like really crazy like spiritual feeling that this is our life's work, and we didn't even know what we were doing, you know? So we took our criticisms of what we did wrong as an event and a logistic operation, and we started planning immediately for the next year, and we haven't stopped that chaotic cycle since, and that's...
I remember you saying in one of our conversations that you were bringing acts that basically they wouldn't come to play at a club. So you were basically matching audience and acts that, unless there was a festival, there would be no opportunity, right? To the local scene to experience it.
Yeah, I mean, we had a situation on our first year that we started that we were just really adamant about bringing DJ Shadow back properly. I don't know if anybody remembers how far back that situation happened in Miami, but it was kind of like a microcosm for our city at the moment. Mansion booked them. They didn't have a dance floor, they didn't have a GA room. They were just like tables in front of a stage. They ended up pulling him halfway through his show, and then he just went to the internet at that moment and did an interview that just basically, shit on our city, rightfully, because we didn't really know they just booked him because they thought it was a cachet name. So we brought him back for the first 3 points in the warehouse with the visuals, with the full open area, and we felt pretty adamant about re-identifying Miami to the artists that come here on that level, and then for the audiences to be able to go see them for a price where they didn't have to buy a bottle.
Nice, thank you. I'm gonna go back to the first 3 points. I have some questions on that, but before, who or what are 3 points? Where does it come from?
I would say it came from an idea that at the time that we wanted to merge like music concerts with a atmosphere of art around it that was coming through via technology. So like actually seeing a show and feeling a show and in the atmosphere you are in, being moved by the visuals and it being matched properly with the sonic layout. That was the 3 points experience of the show. I could tell you that Tara Long was super influential in my life and guided me a lot on what I didn't know and helped me to understand. I had the logo upside down when I first started. It was actually like a Illuminati logo. And she's like, nah. She's like, flip that shit. So, I mean, we had a lot of people around me that were telling me what not to do and what they know, and kind of more of a conceptual group of people that were sharing feelings and thoughts when it came to how we wanted to do an event.
That's awesome. So you were speaking just now about who was here before 3 points, and it just raised my curiosity. How was actually the scene at the moment that you started the festival? Who were the pioneers at that point? Which clubs were in business? How, if you could, if you could share a little bit, because for an example, for me, I arrived in Miami 5 years ago. I experienced a Miami that is for sure very different than a Miami 9 years ago, or 10 years ago, or 15 years ago, but taking taking as a starting point the first year of the festival, how was the scene back then?
Siloed. Like there was dope shit happening, but just kind of like in its own bubble. Pop Life, Grand Central, Peach Fuzz, Electric Pickle, Link My Rebels, Plot, Inball, what she was doing at the Pickle. We were working hard in our little bubble in Bordeaux. But there was more venues, and there was more, like Aramis brought up a good point, it's like competition. I would bid on acts against Aramis all the time, but we would have a beer together at the end of the night, and we sometimes would get off the phone with agents and know that they were pinning us against each other and talk. And like some shows shouldn't have happened at Bordeaux that happened at Bordeaux. They should have happened at Grand Central. But we were ambitious to try to get like acts to Bordeaux, and they were ambitious to get acts to Grand Central because we were fighting week to week to keep places open. So it was different, it was siloed, but once you started like breaking down the walls and talk to everyone that was working their ass off in their own bubble, you could realize quickly if you could work with those people. I got very, very, very lucky to meet the guys from Link Miami Rebels along my way. My business partners at Bordeaux introduced us, and we ended up getting along, butting heads, and then being like, we should probably work together. And that was kind of the energy around 3 points, was we were actually having conversations with those silos, and then to book a multi-genre festival that brought people that would typically go to Peach Fuzz and Grand Central, to the people that would go to Bordeaux, to the people that go to Pickle, to people that don't even know shit about shit. And then we all be at a party together with our own bands playing there, which I think creates this identification of community in that weekend.
And who are the Miami Rebels? Can you name them?
There's a lot. There's a crew. It's my homie Kaloma Kaboomski, who will be on the panel later. He's in overalls if y'all see him. Davide Danese, there's Lucas, there's Ricardo, there's Miss Mata. They're a collection of DJs and artists that were booking primarily techno, electronic, underground stuff that was at Treehouse, Trade, Story, bunch of places to pickle. They were foundational in the pickle. So we would end up closing Bardot and ending up going to the Trade and hanging out at their parties because of their programming, and their events were the best at the time, in my opinion.
I know that it's not in the plan to reopen Bardot, but I heard so many epic stories. Maybe you could have a resurrection at some point.
I would say some things are just best as a memory. Like it had a lot of trauma too. So, I mean, I know a lot of the artists that I worked with throughout the time knew me and knew our team going in there. We really fought for it, but it was a beautiful era that is a great memory. You know how memories sometimes even get better and better over time? I think that's the case there.
All right. One can only dream. Okay, so what about numbers of the festival? Because I don't think it's an information that many people have access to it, and personally, I think it's so interesting when you put in context how many this or that takes to do a festival. So if you don't mind, I just want to explore that with you. How many people attended the first festival?
The first night with DJ Shadow was like 600 people, and I was in a 3,000 person room, and I literally was backstage like, this didn't work. We're fucked. And my partner at the time was like, you need to go out there and host, have some tequila. You look like a mess, go outside. And the next night we had 2,500 people show up. And
a little better.
Way better. A party. Super happy. It was like, it clicked then. But I think it was maybe 3,200 throughout the first year. And
up to today, how many attendees to the festival?
Somebody asked me this earlier. 200,006, 475 people have went to 3 Points over the years. Tickets per day. Some people had 3-day tickets.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, truth be told, guys, like no one was ready for last year. Like we had a plan, but that was exponentially bigger than we've ever done before.
We're gonna tap into that.
Yeah. But that was
2021 is coming back to you.
Yeah. That was 50,000 of that 200,000.
How many artists have performed up to today?
Probably over 1,000. You know, I think it was usually about 120 per edition. So I think probably north of 1,000.
And how many staff members do you have? Do you guys have?
Probably 2,200 to 2,300 when you actually, the whole weekend and everything from security to the food and beverage teams, probably around there.
All right, so again, 363 days on that to put a show that lasts 2 days. It's a lot, isn't it?
Yeah, it definitely is a lot. It's definitely a labor of love, and it's something that I think has a really kinetic energy because you kind of pull it back like a slingshot, and everything is just more and more prep, and it just intensifies. The team starts building. You start seeing new people in the office that are handling one division of back of house, and it's like just the energy intensifies, and then it just happens, and it's really over quick, and then we're kind of in recovery mode for a while afterwards.
For a year.
Yeah, I wish.
Not actually, because it starts the work for the next year, right?
Yeah, and we have Art Basel behind it. Now we have Hocus Pocus the week after it. So it's our quarter threes and quarter fours are really intense.
All right. Yeah. So let's go to 2021 then. I know that it was a difficult year. The festival suffered quite a lot of criticism because things that happened, and I would like to ask you what what would you like to share in terms of what was 2021 for you guys? What actually happened?
We started 2021 in January of 2020, pre-pandemic. Primarily, we announced the lineup that had Robin, the Strokes, we marketing that lineup. We were going to be in May, and then we shut down in March of that year. And my team and I were just trying to think about, no one knew anything, timeline, so we just kicked it to October of that year. Kind of remixed the lineup, gave everyone a refund that wanted one, and then put tickets back on sale for like hoping that it would work. As we got deeper in the summer, it's not going to work. Kicked it again to May, a whole nother time. Did the same thing, remixed it, refunded, released it, put it back on sale. And each time we would probably have like 2,000-3,000 refunds and then like 3,000-4,000 purchases. So most of you, maybe this is TMI, but like we never really have made money with the festival. So Live Nation, who became our partner in 2018, was ready to just shut it down in the pandemic like they did everyone else. But the problem was that up until that point, we never really were a profitable venture to them. So we just tried to keep it on sale to survive. And, we got to May and we announced the final lineup, which was in October, and put it back on sale. And things were looking up for Florida at the time and actually started selling really well. So it grew to a number that our biggest festival to that date was like 14,000 people a day. We ended up doing about 24,000 people a day last year. We put in a plan to expand to a footprint that we never have used before with the stretch to Fifth Avenue and whatnot, RC Cola, And we put calculations in our head of how many people would leave after the headliners, like after Rufus and Strokes. We think X amount of people leave the festival. And so these venues that we have open for people would be suffice. It wasn't the case. RC Cola was packed, Mainframe was packed. The cops were going to shut us down, and it was a plan with good intentions and thoughtfulness, but didn't work in execution. Next day, even worse, there was no rain that dissipated some of the people out. Rufus was more of an electronic act, so everyone wanted to party afterwards. Even worse. So the venues that we did have at the late side, it was too much. On top of that, we never really had that many people in general to process through, so we learned a lot, like of what worked, what didn't work, what we thought was a good plan, what wasn't a good plan, and we dropped the ball on a lot of things. I would tell you that we're the first to internally look at it, and say we already were grouping about what the next year would look like. But there were some beautiful things, right? For the first time, we were able to come back together in a crazy fucking year. We survived. We got out the other end. A lot of locals did have great shows, and then a lot of locals got canceled on because of rain and disorganization on our end that broke the hearts of the team that was internally because, again, if you go back to the foundation and the genesis, this was the driving point of keeping this thing alive.
And when we think about it, it's really like the first festival after the pandemic, right?
Pretty much. Secret Project was kind of a
I was just thinking right now, what were the restrictions to put a festival around that time? Because I have no idea. I can only imagine what kind of requests were there from the city hall, from the health organizations. Right. I'm curious about that.
As we got closer to October, it had lightened up a little bit, but I could tell you that we had to cash in all the goodwill we had with the city of Miami, with the relationships that we have made over being responsible event producers, and the will to having this many Miami people that work on the festival and perform at the festival to happen. But we didn't get our permit until the day before, and straight up. And we didn't have access to the indoor warehouses because they said that, if you're indoor, you get COVID faster or some shit. So we couldn't get the indoor warehouses either, which you could have went to if it rained, but we didn't have those. They wouldn't let us put people in there. We were restricted on a lot of aspects of how we applied for permits, how we could plan. So we literally were just going with it without, the city was saying, it's going to happen. We got you. It's good. But we didn't have it until the day before. And that type of anxiety was something that, I mean, to be honest, we opened up space in October of 2020, and we had to go through a lot of processes with the city. We did our best with it so that the city was behind us because they knew that we cared. But you know, me and my partners and our team, we had been stressed since pandemic happened because our livelihoods were on the line. Coming together as an event was like a weapon of mass destruction at that time. That in their minds, they were like, it's going to be, that's the worst thing that can happen. So to keep a business like that alive in the pandemic that hadn't really performed, it was very difficult. And the pressure and anxiety of even pulling it off, I think, was, to us, pretty miraculous that it happened. And I know in that chaos, we just didn't execute to our expectations for the consumer to have the calm, proper 3 Points experience. I think a lot of people didn't get that full thing.
And with that said, what did you guys are taking to 2022 as knowledge from that period? What are you guys bringing new to the festival this year?
I would probably start first and foremost about how the artists of Miami were treated. I think that in general, when we saw the blowback, and then I talked to a lot of these people personally about their horror stories of what happened. By the rain that happened on Friday, we didn't get to open up. The city wouldn't let us open up till 8 o'clock. So all the 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock to 8 o'clock sets got canceled, which was primarily locals. So it was a big bunch of artists. One of our stages got flooded completely. The fire department told me I had to close it because of electricity and the flooding. So I think first and foremost, we are having an indoor facility, a local compound with air conditioning, private bathrooms, places to chill, places to hang, that Red Bull is helping us put together, that is going to have a bar, a place to eat, frequently asked questions, a lot of liaisons to help get people around, maps, communication, accountability, and friendly faces in the compound, so you'll know people from the community that were like, something will come up. Maybe somebody in your crew took too many mushrooms and can't make it to stage. Can we get them a cart? We'll get you a cart.
Nah, we don't do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's happened before. So yeah, we'll have a team there to hopefully get ahead of it. We are working on having a shuttle service so the artist can park in a certain area that's not like Wynwood, where it's safe, and they can Uber to a spot, and we'll shuttle into Wynwood because it's fucking hectic to get in there during 3 Points. On top of that, we booked less artists and longer sets. And on top of that, we're putting our now headliners where they need to be. Nick Leone is playing before Rosalia. We have Don Z and Jacuzzi Boys closing out Sector 3. We're trying to prime up the integration, you know, to make sure that people that are coming to see Rosalia and just saw Flume are seeing the young god Nick Leone, who is on the Rosalia album.
I'm coming for Nick.
But this is the thought, right? Is that we want our community to actually be there. You know, Miami gets there like 7 or 8. They want to be there for the set. So I think with all that considered, I think we're going to do a lot better job on accommodating our actual core, you know, community in this festival and do better.
Well, we much appreciate that. Also, the fact that there is work being put, you know, towards the criticism that happened, and that the festival actually stays in business. We know that Miami, it's not an easy ground to run events. I think a lot of people here are event organizers, so they know exactly what you are talking about and what I'm talking about. So we identify with many of the struggles. So thank you for putting up this show. I have seen many acts that I absolutely adore at the festival, so I'm grateful. Thank you for that. I think we should jump into the Q&A now.
That's cool.
So, in the audience.
Wait, sorry guys, but before we go to the other thing we're doing this year, just because you brought up those, bringing up the concerns of the capacity, we're selling less tickets, and we're opening up more stages after 1 a.m. So this year, across from My Melt, there'll be at 101 will be a dance stage for 10,000 people that'll open up right after My Melt finishes. So LCD will close, Rosalia closed at My Melt, and then across the lot will be another dance stage, which hopefully stretches the property so that you don't have a convergence on the west side of the property. We're also letting Sector 3 go to 3 a.m., and then we have Despacio, James Murphy and Soul Wax's sound installation in the black room, because we're able to use the indoors again. And so it's going to be a completely perfect sound system in a completely perfect sound room that'll be for 2,000 people. So just in that, less tickets, stretch the property, more stages, mad comfortable.
So,
hello, I have a question. So, I'm an artist that's starting out, and I'm curious about the booking process for artists. What do you look at? What kind of numbers, or if you need like a video, or what kind of content do you see for that?
Yeah, that's a super good question. Well, because we have Space Floyd in the ground, and we integrate as much as we can with a lot of the local acts, we're seeing a lot of progress. When I say progress, I mean like the progress of acts that we already know, that maybe played last year. So we're seeing the development of where they're going. We also have an amazing people that program stuff in our club, from Gami at Otherworld, or Out of Service just did something, to the things that we're doing at Floyd with Odd, that they're bringing in a lot of new talent that we're getting to listen to. And then our team meets weekly to talk about the music. So just on our little bubble that we're working on, we're staying up to date. But if you're an artist that's not working with us yet, we have a couple channels to get in front of us. And the best one we do in our crew, the most efficient one we do, is open house. So we take as many candidates as we can. We're very public about the application process. You go through it. It has everything that you just asked, like a video, links, your numbers. Numbers don't matter as much in an open house. It's really the sound, the direction. Then we actually pick 30 of those. We put them on stage and we listen to them. And we have people in the room that then come back to us, and then we're putting 7 people on the open house that we found last month on the festival, that we just found last month. I mean, there's amazing acts that we found from open house, including Butterfly, Snapple, Mustard Service, other people that we found out about that we didn't know. So that's the best way. And then on top of that, I think that, it's just good to meet and come out and meet people in these places if you wanted to get booked there, and introduce yourself and just support their stuff, and then eventually let them hear your music, and it'll kind of work from there.
David, there's also the artist grant, right? Yep. This year.
This is a new one, yeah. So we're trying to do we just picked, I think, the finalists, but we put out a visual artist grant this year. It's 3 different grants for $3,333, and we're picking them to put together a visual art piece on the festival grounds. We had over 500 applicants to that, and we'll be announcing the winners of that next week.
Hello. So first of all, I want to just, I guess, congratulate and just let you know how respectable it is of you as a founder of 3 Points to acknowledge the mishaps, the unforeseen mishaps of last year. And, as an attendee of the festival, obviously I was experiencing that as well. So just as a person that was there, thank you. I think it's very respectable
of course
of you. To add on to their question, first of all, do you have a bucket list of performers that you'd like to see on a 3 Point stage? And when does the headliners, the booking of the headliners, when does that start for you and your team? When do you start booking that?
So, great questions. And of course, I my bucket list starts with Aphex Twin, and everything kind of trickles down from there. Boards of Canada would be cool. We try a lot. A Massive Attack has been to Miami, but let's get them back. I think, man, Bjork was something that we were really after for a while, but I actually really happy it didn't happen at the festival, because I think that it would have, people have been fucking talking, it would have been annoying. I think it'd be sick. I mean, Kendrick properly for like 120 minutes. That would be that. And the other question was, okay, that's a good question. I mean, we confirmed the Rosalia deal backstage of 3 Points this year, because her manager is like, she's on like an arena tour right now, or like a solo tours in cities, and they were supposed to play FTX, like 2 shows at FTX this year. So we put in an offer, and then they actually came to the festival and saw the urban sprawl set up, and they're like, nah, this is where it's at. So that actually happened there. Like, they were affirmed on it. And then LCD, I mean, that's a 7-year conversation that finally came together with timing, and that's, if anybody's like a historian on the festival or knows how much we were sad about the hurricane coming in 2016 and not having LCD play, this is a big show. It's a big show.
Interesting that you said about the availability for the artists. Like in 2022, we have different problems, right, than 2021. I feel that like everybody's so busy, everybody's booked, everybody's doing 10,000 things at the same time. You try to book an artist, you need to wait, 6 months? And how is that affecting the festival this year?
That's a great question. We're in Florida, so we were able to do the festival in 2021. No one else did. Okay, so then just put on the calendar this year all the festivals coming back, any new festivals. That's happening in 2022. Every artist that's touring, including Rose or Weeknd or Bad Bunny, have their own little businesses that they, not little, but they travel throughout the country with, and they do a tour, which is all their money is tied up in there. Their advances, the money they took, is tied in there. Everyone stuffed everything on 2022, okay? So ticket buyers are going up. We're going up on sale with the festival for X amount of dollars, and then you're looking to the side and you're like, but I can go see one person for $60, and there's just too many options right now for the buyer. It's saturated. The economy's inflated. There's no like fake crypto money around anymore. So there's just some shit that's like making it really hard for what I think is an amazing lineup this year that should have really like done the numbers. We're struggling. Like, we're gonna do really well because Miami kind of comes back strong, but we're gonna probably, probably undersell by 20% of what our expectations of our partner was. What that means, a more comfortable festival. Definitely a type of capacity that we feel comfortable doing. I think will probably be around 18 to 20,000 people as opposed to 25, 26. So there is advantages to it. I think people get a drink easier. Maybe the bar sales are better. There's going to be some things that we're going to be able to get from this year that we didn't get from last year. But I think last year was an anomaly, to be honest. I think we were living in a little bit of a crazy reality, and we just did it. And this year, it's just, with the saturation of everything that's going on, it's just a different playing field.
Right.
David, you mentioned earlier that Live Nation actually tried to cancel the festival, and I found that to be kind of a surprising admission. Can you talk a bit about that relationship? Are there any, what are the benefits, what are the constraints of working with such a massive promoter, especially in the light of, as we've been talking about during this event, the current lack of venues and spaces for artists that might not be at Live Nation level?
Yeah, totally. Well, we needed it in 2016 with the hurricane, Irma, or it was Matthew that year, and it was Irma then the next year. Matthew basically put our festival on hold, and then we ended up going forward with it because we thought we were going to lose a ton of money if we canceled it. We ended up losing less of a ton of money with no real financial understanding of how to handle that. So we were trailing debt for many years, and then that year really put us in a really tough spot. So we ended up doing a deal with Live Nation because if you're making money, they stay out of your way. They're they're autonomous. They're a supportive bag. And then they have resources. You know, I was only able to book that Rosalia show because they didn't go after me. Because, you know, if they wanted to book it at FTX, they could have just booked it at FTX. But I was able to talk to the Live Nation people and talk to them about it being the right play. So there's a lot of benefits to it. And we did it in a way that we could work with them, and that they were always financially, like, even if we lose money, they always pay the bills. You know, and the worst thing that could happen to us is us to go under and not know how we pay the bills. Or a rainstorm hits us for 2 days and our projections go down the shitter. And then, so they gave us the ability to plan a business and got behind us. And to be honest, guys, it always felt like, even when I was promoting shows independently, it always felt like the big bad, you know, mothership. But it's not like that. It's pretty like just a publicly traded company that autonomously invests in promoters that they think can do business in the market. And they've been a very good partner to us. They've recently really seen the value in 3 Points and the value in Miami. And I do think that they'll be behind us even if we have a loss this year. But that's really what it's there for, is the stability to be able to grow to be a 15-year festival.
One more question. Excuse me, one more question, sorry. So one of my biggest dreams is to be able to open a venue or a nightclub here in Miami. And definitely one of the biggest problems is like gathering the money. But let's say that you gather the money in some years and you're able to get the money. The second biggest problem would be like competing against these like huge brands that have like huge and great, amazing teams behind the club, doing like amazing lineups. And it's like, if you're a small business, so like, how would you compete against these huge brands that have everything if you're like a small business trying to start like a venue and look forward to being something like Club Space in the future, something like that?
It's a good question. I think there's a common misperception that we are happy that we're like the only venue that's open right now that's doing this music. It's quite the opposite. We want as many venues open in the city as possible. It's good for business, good for community, it's good for the gigs, for DJs, it's good for the community, the artist community. So anybody that has an idea on a venue, like, just fucking do it, open it up, get it going, understand that your projections and your ideas are gonna be different once you learn the business in 3 months. You're gonna be like, that worked, that didn't work. Floyd was supposed to be a jazz club. Nah, it's like a left field house club. Like, and we learned it quickly. Like, we had to pivot, you know what I'm saying? My other advice to you is find a niche, find an intention that you want for the space, right? Like, what's the fucking space feel like? What are you trying to create? Maybe something small off the bat starts, 200-300 person capacity. Get your licenses proper. Invest in your insurance, invest in like the foundation of your roots. Build the aesthetic. It doesn't need to be expensive. It just needs to be thoughtful. It could be DIY. Put that out there. Program your homies that also understand that aesthetic. Push, be patient, take your time, and you know, things can happen and you'll learn a lot in the first year to 2 years about what the future of that venue will be.
Thank you, David. Thank you for all the insights.
Of course.
And just complimenting, as much cliche could sound, your vibe attracts your tribe, right? We had this conversation before. So we are ending the panel. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you guys for being here. This is really sick that everyone showed up. So thank you guys.
Is this thing on? Is this thing on? Is this thing on? Is this thing on? Hi. Hi, hi, hi. Hey, everybody. Oh my God, thank you so much for coming out. This was so cute. My name is Tara Long. I'm an artist, an electronic musician. I'm out here, born and raised. My pronouns, she, they. Let's keep it real. Yeah, so I'm moderating. I don't really know what I'm doing up here, but I've got some questions, and I'm going to keep it moving. Let's go down the line and introduce ourselves, starting with Ashley. I think it's
testing.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Ashley Solage. I'm also known as Ashley Venom. I'm a DJ, cultural organizer, and event producer. And my pronouns are she, they as well.
Hello. Hi, my name is Alexis. I go by Sister System. I'm an artist and event producer. I go by just she, her.
Hi, everybody. My name is Koloma Kaboomski. I am an event organizer in the community, fan of a lot of the artists that are in this room. I go by he, him.
Hi. Hi, everyone. Woo! Okay. My name is Gami, aka Ultra Them. I like to party. And yeah, I'm super excited to be a part of this panel. My pronouns are she, they. Get it right.
Hello, everyone. My name is Victor Pranchota. Pronouns he, she. I am also well, I would say events curator. I don't strictly work with music. I also work with art. So, yeah.
Yes. I luckily know you all, and I love you all so much. And I guess we're here talking about the community. So I'm going to start with some basic questions to get us going. So I'm just going to ask you all, and we'll go down the line, like, how did you become an organizer, and what do you consider the essence of curating? Let's start with Victor.
Repeat the question.
Yes, for sure. I'm a little lit, so bear with me, y'all. How did you become an organizer?
That part. Yeah, it's a long story. I started off actually in like hardcore punk bands way back when. And I was going to school in Boston. Everyone had a basement. So it was just like the opportunity was just sitting there. There was a big open room that didn't get activated for any particular purpose. And so it kind of just happened that way. Started organizing events. I always loved dancing, so it started, incorporating DJs and so on and so forth. Eventually, things grew to where they are now, where I curate for a museum, the ICA, and then I also have my own event series, Autonomy. The essence of curating. I think that is a very open question. I can say what the essence of curating is for me. So for me, I like to create juxtapositions. So instead of taking, let's say, very consistent sounds and putting them together, I would rather have different sounds that don't typically go together, but maybe carry some common sonic qualities or political inclination or what have you. The same goes for visual art.
Nice, thank you. Gami?
So, okay. We started doing parties at an apartment, right? And that's how we started, and it was with this person called Keanu. And we're no longer together in the collective, but it's fine. But we started in an apartment in essence to just like have a good time. Parties were getting raided at the apartment, so you obviously have to move spaces. And then actually, matter of fact, my first official rave was with Victor, was with Autonomy, at the Super Wheels. And Tara, you performed.
Oh, yes. Oh, my
You were
God.
there. Yeah, and I
Yes.
think a lot of people were there, actually. And we were just like, whoa, what the hell? There's so many freaking people here. And everyone's on drugs and roller skating. And oh, my God, like, what? Like, it was like the most cosmic energy I've like felt like in my life, I think. And then after that, you know, the brand evolved and I started doing parties at the iconic 229, which Tara and Victor operated for a very long time with also Bird and Skylar and a few other people. And that DIY space was like essential to me curating and creating a community in Miami. 229 forever, like hands down, like so much freedom, like really love it. And you know, you start to outgrow spaces. Apartment, 229, right? Getting a little too rowdy, people on the street, people don't fit into the space. Then we were finally able to move into the ground, thanks to David and Coloma and so many other partners at Space. And, you know, I mean, then it was like, oh shit, the space is too big. And, but it was I literally emailed David saying, I want to experiment with this venue. So I don't know exactly what I'm doing, but I'm going to try my hardest to fill this space. We filled it, then the pandemic happened, and, you know, a lot of things happened, and now we have a new brand with Otherworld, and we're doing the parties at the ground. Fantastic, fantastic. That's, I think, when within this year after the pandemic, I've become a real curator, because now it's like parties back to back, doing my research, listening to these artists, going to their sets, you know, listening to them on Instagram, listening to them on SoundCloud, etc. And curating, you have to listen to full sets. You know, you should. You know, I remember one of my friends was like, I don't like listening to other DJs' DJ sets because I don't, you know, want to be inspired or blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, then how do you know what the hell they're going to play at your party? You know, what the fuck? And so I've thoroughly listened to these people's sets and Whore Berlins or Boiler Rooms or whatever. And I think what's important to me now has changed a lot since the last 3 years. It's like my ethos is still in the same place, but to me it means more now sharing as many resources as I can with as many people as I can possible. So it's not just femmes, it's not just like, you know, it's just everyone, because all artists are extremely valid and extremely talented. So that's where I'm at with my curation, and also just want to throw a pop-in party, right? That's where it comes down to, right? You gotta throw a sick party. So I'm gonna hand it over to Coloma because I'm babbling a lot.
You're doing great. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming. It's Gami inspires me very much every time that she does an event at the ground, and it definitely reminds me of when we started doing things. It was actually La Covacha in Doral, and Danny Days was part of that. You know, yeah, we were renting Dynacord sound system with all the money we had for lunch that week, and wasting it on a sound system, not wasting, but investing it in a sound system, and bringing people to a salsa club to listen to house music. So it was a great experience. We were there for 3 years, and from there we moved to Treehouse, in between the Pickle, Trade, Story. We did some really cool things at Bordeaux. We did a bunch of outdoor things too, some boat parties. Boat parties are really difficult to do. They're very expensive. But overall, it's been a really nice journey. It's always a great memory to remember where you started, because not a lot has changed. The intention is the same, the roots are deeper, and the intention from then is the essence of curation. And for me, it's one word, it's love. You do it because you love it, and you want to give other people love and receive love in return. So for me, that's the essence.
Hell yeah, thank you.
Hello. So I grew up in Broward, and I lived in a pretty conservative household, so I wasn't really allowed to go out a lot. I had gone to a few house parties in high school, but Miami was kind of something I was really excited about, and I did everything that I could to get a job down there at 19. I started working at Panther, but I couldn't get in anywhere. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna fucking just throw my own party because I can't get in anywhere. So I reached out to Tara and Victor, and they're like, you're crazy, but we'll help you. And it was a lot of people. We actually didn't know what we were gonna do. There was like almost 700 people there, and I didn't know anything either, but they were very supportive.
For record, the space was 1,100 square feet.
Yeah,
so 700 people does not fit.
But really why I got started was because, again, I had my introduction to electronic music was through Danny and through some other people that I had the privilege of seeing at 3 Points, and I didn't understand club music. I thought it was just music. I didn't understand its culture, its setting, really. But I was like, where do I get more of this? And I had such a lack of access to it. And I kind of, when I would go to other parties, because I had gone to a few internet friend parties before, I was interested to why there wasn't different types of music there, because I had a really broad interest. I really loved indie music, I loved ambient music, I liked techno, I liked the harder stuff, but I didn't want to hear it for 6 hours. So I did parties, and my main intention was to always have multiple rooms or multiple stages. The second room at 229, because it was an 1,100 square foot space, was a U-Haul that I decided to park inside the garage. And I'm like, I have this idea, I don't know how it's gonna work out, but I'm gonna do it. And from there, it's been really difficult, I think, to throw more independent parties, but I think the reason always why I've done it is because I really love it. I love the idea of bringing artists together, and really all of my parties have usually just been Miami talent. I've never booked anybody outside if I was gonna do something outside of the club. And really just bring everybody together, my friends together, and the intention behind it. Not that anybody needs to know, but the idea that I had an idea and I can see the crowd and I can see the music and I know how it's gonna work out, and everything from entering the venue to where people are gonna meet their next partner or their next friend or decide that they're gonna make music. I've had such wonderful experiences that people have shared with me of like just going to that party that I'm like super stressed out the whole entire time. I don't want anybody talking to me while I'm there, but they tell me such wonderful things about the experiences that they had is really what drives me forward, because I think it's kind of hard to find your tribe here, to really find people that you connect with, but sometimes you find somebody who doesn't really know why they're at that party at all, but ends up becoming some of your best friends, and I think that's kind of the chosen family that I have now have always came from the times that I've just been out with the pure intention of just accepting whatever comes to me. So that's kind of the reason why I do parties.
This question's kind of hard for me to answer because I feel like I didn't intentionally get into producing events. I just kind of like fell into it. I was 18 years old, my first year of college, going to FIU, studying journalism, and just really lost. I didn't know like what I wanted for myself. I didn't know what lied ahead. And I just knew that I wanted something more, and so I would spend hours every single night on Craigslist looking for like odd jobs, like weird like art gallery jobs and things like that. And I came across this like really strange ad, and I was like, you know what, I think I'm gonna go for it. And it ended up being this venue called LMNT that used to exist in Midtown Miami. And so I was 18 years old. I started off as an intern, and then within a month, I was like doing their payroll, doing their marketing, like doing everything. 18 years old, like no college degree, but just like really eager to learn. And at the same time, someone that I had a crush on shared Metro Zoo with me. I'm not sure if anyone in here is familiar, but they were a hip hop or a rap group back in the day, like 2012. And so I really started to fall in love with local hip hop in Miami. I was listening to a lot of like Denzel Curry, that kind of stuff. And so because I had access to that venue and I really loved the music, I just was like, you know what, I want to create a space for local artists because I don't really see too much of that around. And so I started throwing events with no money or anything. I was just like, we're going to make it work. We'll figure it out. And we did. And then eventually I started producing The Void back in like 2014. Which was like a music and art showcase. And yeah, I think when it comes to the essence of curating, I think for me, having an intention is really important because I think that sets the tone for who comes into the space, how they show up, what they're looking to get out of it, how they respect each other, and just the overall experience.
Hell yeah. Thank you all so much. Now we're going to get into that nitty gritty, coming right off that. I'm going to ask a deep question. What does safety mean to you? And what steps are you taking to make your spaces safer and more inclusive among staff and attendees? Let's start with Ash.
Thank you. Safety is kind of a tricky word because I think you can't really control what happens in a space. You can do your best to create protocols, have community guidelines, have security, all the things, and things can still go wrong. People can still commit harm. For me, over the last couple of years with MACC, the collective that I'm a part of, we've been really intentional about safety because the community that we are creating the space for, Black, queer, and trans people, are typically the ones who are harmed in spaces, the ones who don't have access to enough resources. And so we've been really intentional about making sure that everyone that's a part of the event understands that safety is the #1 priority. We have community guidelines. We make sure that every single person on staff is aware, including security. We've done walkthroughs with security, and we make sure that they understand that they're actually not there to intimidate people or to act as police, which they tend to do, but they're there to protect the attendees. And so that has been really supportive. I think holding orientations with staff as well. I mean, Victor was did our audio visual for our last event and can maybe share like how we were really intentional about, we have angels, which is our safety team. We refer to them as angels, which are people who go around the party and make sure that if anyone needs support, they have it. If they're too drunk and they need water, they get it. If they're lost and they need to find their friends, they have support doing that. Or if they're uncomfortable, we like help them to figure out how to remedy the situation. But also it's not just their responsibility, like it's everybody's responsibility to take care of each other. And so I think if every person comes into the space with that intention that we're here to take care of each other, then spaces will be much more safe.
Hell yeah. Intention.
Hello. Yeah, it's kind of some of the similar protocols at the parties that I would do independently. I made sure that I had a good group, a good base of people that were in the crowd, like just friends that I knew that I could trust, that could be in the crowd and be able to watch over people. Because when you're doing things in like warehouse spaces and stuff, you don't have like a lot of resources. There's not a huge security presence there. And I think that like it's important to make sure that you're kind of like the majority of the people really having like a good door person, which is like what I've really had the same door person across all my parties, and it's Marina, who's had 10 years at the Pickle. And I've always told her, I don't care if anybody has a ticket to the event. If they don't vibe with you, they don't vibe with me, and they're just not allowed inside. Of course, there's still things that happen, but I think that just making sure that you don't go into things alone, and that there's people that you can trust, and that you should know like the majority of the people who are coming to your parties, especially if you're going out. Once you expand to a base where it's more people than you can recognize, it's like being able to have a good amount of people that will speak up, because it's like I think there's a lot of nuances that also happen in parties that just escalate out of control. You know, I've seen people who are just on drugs and, you know, drunk, and just a simple glance can be offensive to somebody. And like just having somebody to step in and mediate and just be like, hey, you know, do you want to come and get a bottle of water? Like, let's talk over here, you know, can really like dismantle a situation. But on the larger topic of like what safety, oh, and then also like when we send the final information, like to at least to all my ticket buyers, because those are the people that we're not really like, you know, we're trying to process in quickly. I screen like our guidelines, you know, like, hey, like, please don't, you know, have your phone on the dance floor. Please refer to people's pronouns. Like, if you're experiencing any uncomforting situation, please reach out to an identifiable staff member. Like, all that gets emailed out to people with the rest of the event information. But what safety means is just that somebody can close their eyes in the middle of the dance floor and not worry. That's like, to me, like, if you can achieve that, then you've really created a beautiful space. Because if somebody's consistently worried, where's my phone? Is somebody gonna touch me? Like, this person keeps on following me. Did that person put something in my drink? Like, that's not a way to party. I think, like, really, if we're in an event, we're looking for some kind of catharsis or connection, and you shouldn't be like afraid. So that's really.
I definitely agree with Sister on an ideal philosophical level that safety is where you can go somewhere and let go completely and disconnect from everything and have a great time. In practice, especially coming from a big nightclub with 4 different rooms that operates 24 hours, sometimes 36 hours in a row, I can tell you that in practical terms, that's a lot more difficult, and that it's an ever-evolving way of treating the crowd. It starts at the door and it continues throughout the entire venue, throughout very long hours. It is really important to train the staff in how to treat people. I think Miami itself, 10 years ago, security were more like police officers. Security were big, strong guys that were intimidating and that stopped any sort of situation with physical force. Miami today, honestly, they're more hospitality officers than anything else, and it's something that we talk about every single week in the club, that we try to really drive home, and it's, I think, a transitionary period for the big clubs in Miami to be hospitality officers, to be there for people even on a friendship level, where you're taking care of people rather than being a physical force. There's something also very important that we do at the club, which is a pat down. Thankfully in Miami, we've never had an issue with weapons and weapons with firearms, but it's something that we really care for at the club and at different events because it happens nationwide. So it's a really important detail at the door where we want to make sure that people are coming in without the ability to harm others at a bigger scale. What else with safety? You know, there's areas specifically in the club where things happen and we know about it, like bathrooms, where we really try to have a bigger presence with attendants that are better trained, that are keeping their eye on what's going on. A lot of times, you know, it's people shouldn't let their friends go to the bathroom alone, for example. And this also comes to the crowd, right? Because if you're feeling sick and you pass out in a bathroom stall that you locked, it becomes an issue, right? Because there's no one to communicate with. So that being a small example leads to when you go out with your friends, you have to take care of your friends, wherever you go. Whether it's a festival, a club, a warehouse, you have to take care of each other. We live in a world where as much as we can take care of each other, as much as an organizer can do to avoid issues, there's always going to be uncontrollable things, and we have to be taking care of each other first and foremost and be self-reliant first and foremost so you could take care of others.
Got me.
This is a very complex question. I think that safety definitely has to do with audience. And I think Miami a lot of it hasn't broken outside of like the simulation, the simulatrix, this like weird matrix of like bottle service, bitches and boobs, you know? And it's like, and it's, you know, I'm only gonna see straight people at the club, and, you know, I'm in Miami, bitch, you know? Like, everyone is like in this weird simulation, and it's like, I was in it too. I used to be like, oh yeah, fuck yeah, you know? But then it's like, you start to like tear these layers down, and you're like, wait, okay, there's more to dance music, there's more to raving, there's more to like music, there's more to DJing. Baby, there's so much more. Like after Berlin, girl. But even then, they've broken through the simulation. But something that was interesting that I brought up to Sister was one of these raves that I played, they were like very, very blatantly talking about needle spiking and drink like spiking too, you know, like they were very, very like adamantly talking about it. And I was like, ooh, this is a little intense, but at the same time it's not, because it's very real in Berlin, right? So I think we need to start talking more about these things, like more blatantly, like not being scared about talking about them, because it's gonna happen. The second thing to me is changing the language, because safer spaces, you know, versus safe spaces versus brave spaces, you know, like going outside of like, okay, I can't promise you 100% this thing is gonna happen to you, you know, like, and it's all very like different depending on the space, you know, because it's a club, it's a renegade, it's a rave, it's, you know, a discotheque, or it's a roller rink, you know, and it's like, I think that we just have to start changing the language more, and I think that a lot of promoters need to start just like listening to like, you know, podcasts of like Michelle Look, Rave to the Grave. Like she says a lot of things. She's from LA. Recommend her, Michelle Look, LHOOQ. She talks a lot about reinventing safer spaces and rave utopias and temporary autonomous zones. I know I'm talking in French to y'all, you know, what the hell is a temporary autonomous zone? But those are more like renegades, you know, more of the stuff that's going on in like Austin, Texas, more of like intentional communities. So it's like a very large scale to cover that I could babble about a lot, but I think that a lot of us that are on this panel are trying very much. Ashley, Sister, Coloma, myself, Victor, even Tara, when we're all running the spaces. We're all trying our best. It's just a tad difficult in certain circumstances where, you know, it's like the audience is maybe not as prepared to experience something like pornceptual or something, you know, like, it's difficult, but I think that we're getting there slowly and surely, and I think the more our atmospheres change and the more the audience is adapting to knowing that trans, black, queer, gay people will be at your space now, and they will be at space because I'm throwing a party at the ground, right? They're gonna be there, so it's like, get used to it, like, get it together. There's young girls there, yeah, but they're not there to have sex with you. Like, you know, consent is like a huge thing, and something that Bound does that's really cool, this is why I love Katie so much, she does these flag cards, and they're very like cunty, because it's like if someone's like talking to you and trying to like get on your shit, which like happened to me, this guy was like misgendering me and was like talking to me and being like, oh my god, this and this, oh da da da, and I just like handed them a card, and they literally just like their stomach dropped and they were like, holy shit. And the card says like, this is your warning, if you're gonna continue doing this shit, you will be kicked out and you won't get a refund. Like, and it said it, and he thought I was giving him my number, which was like really cunt. And he was like, and I just like turned around, and he was like, holy shit, he left. Because he was just like, wait, I'd rather just leave than get kicked out. So I think there's just like, we have to change the measures that we're taking. People don't read, unfortunately, as much as you wish they would. Even when I do print out these things in the bathrooms and I post them and everything, and it's like they're just there to have a good time. They're like in their like I'm in Miami bitch vibe, so it's like they think anything goes. But I think we're trying, and I think we're gonna get there. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So I'm going to echo a lot of what was said. I think that context is important to understanding what the particularities of safety are. For the events that I do, they're on a bit smaller of a scale. It definitely has more of a kind of DIY ethos to it. And in that context, for me, I think it's really about creating a community that's intentional in the first place, right? So we are not trying to, and this is true of people operating at lots of scales, but we're not trying to recreate the hierarchies that exist outside of the club, right? We can't avoid those hierarchies. They will enter. We still live in the system that we do. However, we're going to do our best to create some sort of alternative. So part of that is creating community in the first place, right? Community doesn't have to exist solely within the context of the club. The community extends outside of it. So for a lot of people, that's just friendships. It's that simple, right? You have friends outside of the club that you also go to the club with, or the warehouse, or whatever context that you're going to party. And as others have said, you look out for your friends. But the more you're intentional about that, and the messaging, like Gami's saying, the language you use, the more you're intentional about that, the more you can get those values to permeate outside of just like individual friend circles who are going to hold each other accountable, keep each other safe, and you can have those values extend to the broader group of people that come to your events. And then the best thing happens, right? A community that's self-regulating. It's not about there being some person in a position of power who can, you know, lay down the law, right? Like we said, we're not trying to recreate those hierarchies. We don't want our security to act like cops, right? It's not about laying down the law. It's about having a community that self-regulates.
Yeah, I think it's weird. Like, it's like you need there to be money, but there's something with the money and then the safety that gets a little weird. Anyway,
Can I just touch up on what Victor said? Like, that's the obviously like the most important objective is once you have a community self-regulating, they have adopted it as a value of their own, which permeates beyond just the event and then in their everyday life. So if you can get somebody to believe in not a rule, but a behavior, a way of being in a situational space to the point where you would enforce it on yourself as a safety measure for yourself and the other people around you, now you have a brainwave change. So I think that's like obviously the most important thing is not only for these matters and these values to be recognized, but for you to adopt them to the point where it's changing your behavior and your outlook and your compassion towards people. So.
Community values, y'all. Community values. All right, well, we're running low on time, but we're going to get to this last question. We're supposed to talk about money, but there's like stuff here about making a budget. I know that's like, everybody wants to know, but maybe you can talk a little bit about like the struggles of making a budget really quick. And then I just want to know like, how can Miami's creative community be more collaborative and supportive? But real quick, let's just throw out the budget stuff because I feel like it's like information a lot of people are wondering about. Like when you're curating an event, like what are some challenges in managing a budget, like negotiations you've had with venues, like the struggles of the budget, and then tell me how the community can help and be more supportive.
So the budget is actually my favorite part, which is kind of weird, but I, through managing budgets, have really begun to think about like financial equity and what it looks like to pay people fairly and just like in organizing, like community organizing, we say that when you follow the money, it shows what your intentions are, it shows what you care about. And so I've really begun to adopt that when it comes to making budgets. And so I think, you know, obviously the main important thing is like your infrastructure, how you throw the party, so the venue, the equipment, what, you know, whatever you need to literally just open the doors and have music playing or whatever programming you need. But I think honestly, after that, the artist is the #1 thing because they're the reason why people come. And so for me, I think I try to prioritize infrastructure first. And then after that, I just make it a point to make sure that we're paying artists as best as we can, or our vendors, people we work with. I think in Miami, it's really hard to be able to do the thing that you love and get paid fairly. And so that's like my mission when it comes to budgets, is like curving that out. And then in terms of being more collaborative, I think just like sharing resources and sharing knowledge, like sharing templates for budgets, sharing equipment if someone needs to record a mix, teaching someone how to DJ, or like, you know, hiring them to be your event manager, even if they don't know what they're doing, but they will learn and eventually be able to do the thing. So I think the more that people get in the spirit of sharing, the more collaborative things will be, and the more resources and infrastructure that will exist for other people to kind of thrive and do their thing.
Hi. Yeah, I'm a sheets person. I'm a numbers person. So it's really hard for real. Like, I think that people, when they're buying a ticket to a party, they're like, oh my God, $20. It's like, no, you have no idea. This is the lowest it could possibly be before I have to sell my car, because it's really, really tough. I mean, you have sound system costs, you have the venue rental, you have insurance, you have security, you have to pay the people who are like helping you put the party in. Like, the people who put the decor and stuff, they shouldn't be there for 16 hours and not get paid. So there's like so much that goes into it. And I remember the first time that I collaborated with Gami on an event, she's like, yeah, we're just gonna do it. I'm like, you have nothing written down? Like, that's so crazy. So it's like imperative if you decide to organize.
Okay, but it was sick. It was sick.
It was one of our favorite
And we
parties.
had 2 stages, and we had outside, we had everything, you know, but yeah.
No, but it was one of the best parties, one of my favorites, because it was during conference, and I was at this venue that'll never accept us to come back again. But it is imperative that you literally write everything down, because it adds up. The $2 that you spent on tape, the flyer, the artist, the CDJs, the sound system, and then the first sound system guy that you locked in with can't come because he has to pick up his kid, and now you're paying double for a second sound system last minute because you have to change venues. Like, there's so much that goes behind, especially if you also, like, I never used a sponsor because I didn't know how to reach out to them, or most of them, they're like, you have to have 5,000 people for us to give you $200. I'm like, okay, well, fuck you then. So I think, like, definitely starting with what Ashley says, like, infrastructure, that's what's gonna be the most impactful for your audience to continue to believe in what you're doing. Like, you can't just have this great party in one porta potty. So it's, it's all about obviously managing, like, what general expectations, there should be sufficient bathrooms, I should be able to get a drink, there should be ice, I felt like I went to a lot of raves and I'm like, how's there no ice at 12, So it's like a lot of things that are an oversight. And then with the artists, what I've done always is like, hey, I'm gonna show you my whole sheet because this is exactly what it costs to put this on. The last party I did with Danny at the Boombox was 16 grand. I could only pay artists $100, but I didn't walk away with anything with that. That's how much I could. And it breaks my heart that the people that I want to support, I don't have enough money to pay them. But that's why the community who's attending the events, please do the best that you can to buy a ticket early. It's going to the artists. I usually tell the artists, if there's anything that we make, I will give it all to you. It's not about, I don't think anybody who's sitting here goes through the heartbreak and all the emotional turmoil of trying to put on a party, especially in Miami where it might rain, because they're trying to make money. It's because they love the music. And if you're a person who's just buy the ticket, buy the entry price. I think that we all start with pretty reasonable prices. And if you can't afford genuinely because you're financially struggling, we will allow you inside, but don't abuse that power. And if you can't yourself pay, at least share the flyer, create awareness, you know, invite people, and or buy the artist's music. You know, there's so many different ways that you can support, but especially when it comes to a budget, it's usually first infrastructure. For me, sound system, gear, the space, making sure that all the necessary things are, and then, of course, giving as much money as possible to the artists who are involved. And then the staff, they're there for a really long time. You're partying for 6 hours, but they have to be there almost an hour before and sometimes a few hours after. And I think when you're like, you know, hey, the security guard was like really aggressive to me. It's like, yeah, he's probably been cursed at 12 times this night alone before he even got to you. Like, I think understanding the back end, the bartenders who put over 12 to 16 hours, like, yeah, maybe they didn't, you know, like, be the kindest to you when they were taking your order, like, bear with them and bear with everybody. And a kind, like, hey, how's your night going? To the door person, to the person who's in the bathroom. Like, these are people. And I think, like, if we were to understand that more, like, we'd also get more fair treatment from the staff as well, so. But yeah, that's really the, not to lose money on an event in Miami is like nearly impossible. I've managed to do it, but again, I think if you start with the right intention, it'll always, money comes and goes. It really isn't that important, like Tara said. And if you're doing things for the right reasons, the money will fall out of the sky somehow. So
for the event, not for you.
Yeah, no, for the event, for everybody.
And please don't ever tell somebody to smile. That's just the worst fucking thing you'd ever say. Go ahead, Coloma.
So I want to ask a few questions. Who here is an artist? By show of hands, artists. Okay. Who here is an accountant? Okay. Aramis. So the majority are not accountants, right? And battery low. Battery low. If you don't have money, you can't pay for electricity, and then there's no sound system, right? Battery low, you can't hear me. So the budget could be in the hands of an accountant, or it can be in the hands of an artist. But what is true about the budget is that it's an art. And I say this coming from handling and looking at budgets that could very well end the career, or could very well end the payroll of 300 people if it's done incorrectly. So as we scale these things, they become really, really important. And one of the most important things, without getting into specifics of budgets, but one of the most important things is your ability to correctly project how much revenue is going to come into that event. And this is not about being optimistic. This is not about being realistic even. It's about having a pulse on the artist that you're booking and the demand that there is for that, of the brand equity that you've built in the market. There's a lot of things that go into being able to actually project how much revenue is going to come into that event. And the revenue is from the community by buying a ticket, 100%, super important. Whether it's $20 or $150, it's all really, really accounted for. Like, it's really expensive to throw events. Outdoor events, pop-ups, 3 points is so difficult to make money on that. It's really a labor of love, as David mentioned when he was speaking. When you get into brick and mortar venues that are running as well-oiled machines, you still have difficult times. Weather is something you can't really predict very well, and it can really destroy whatever you had in your budget. So it's really about knowing your community. It's about being engaged with the community to be able to predict what type of revenue you're going to have. Outside of that, when somebody comes into your venue and touching on infrastructure, which they started with, if you don't have ice, you're not going to sell drinks. If you don't sell drinks, you're going to make less money. So the infrastructure itself is also extremely important for safety, but also for the revenue part of the budget, which helps you pay the people that are participating in the event. So I'm sure everybody here has been to a party or an event where the organizer clearly cut corners, where you either feel unsafe or you feel like it's not worth paying $15 for this cup of strange tequila that came from somewhere, right? So again, I think with the budget, it's about learning from very small budgets as you continue to grow and understanding how to project what the revenue is going to be, and also keeping the cost and the expenses disciplined more than anything. We're doing multiple big events. For example, Hocus Pocus, and I'll share this with you, is coming up. And we have this idea of doing a third stage. And it seems like a really cool idea, and we really want to do it, but it may be totally irresponsible to do the third stage. And we might still do it, but when you're looking at the budget, you're like, oh, shit, maybe it's not such a cool idea. Yeah, but the alley is so cool. We should do it. So there's always that like little voice in the back of your head that messes with the budget. And it's part discipline, part art. But you at the end of the day, whatever happens with the budget it comes down to the people that are surrounding you and how supportive they are when you have losses, because you're always going to lose. The real problem is when you don't continue so that you can get a win the next time around. And that's really the biggest lesson as an event organizer and promoter when it comes to budgets. You're going to lose sometimes. You get better, you stand up, and you keep going. And you cannot do it alone. You have to stand up with the help of the people that you surround yourself with. And as I look into this room, I see a lot of people that I'm really happy to be surrounded by that have definitely helped me get back up a ton of times. From spreadsheet to reality, there's a long road, is essentially what I'm saying. So yeah.
Okay, so spreadsheets aside, I'm going to be a little bit of a devil's advocate here. It really depends on what your end goal is, right? So Austin, Texas, Freak System. Their venue is not a venue. So it's like a Lon John Silver's or a freaking bridge or a baseball field, right? Is their end goal to make money? Probably not. Is their end goal to do something that's like impactful and that is like so authentic and organic? Yes. Do they make money? Probably not. Is it a few guys that throw this party? Yeah, but they do it out of so much love. And I remember just like joking around with my friends in Austin being like, oh my God, I love this venue. I love the bathrooms. No bathroom. Right? Oh, I love this venue. Oh my God, there's a bar. No bar. Right? Because it's literally in a fucking bridge, right? It's called the Metropolis Bridge. If you look it up, you'll see it. And I just was like, wow. And then I had a conversation with him recently in New York, and I was like, wow, you guys should maybe bring a headliner or something. It would be so sick on this bridge. And they were like, we literally can't afford that because we just make just about enough money. Imagine getting dropped off in an Uber on a highway. That's where I got dropped off. I got dropped off on a highway, and then I had to walk down the highway onto the abandoned bridge. And I was like, what am I doing? Am I about to die? It's really scary, but it really depends what your end goal is and who you are and what your intentions are. Obviously, I'm on both spectrums where I'm throwing a monthly party at a nightclub, right? So there's more of an infrastructure. I'm talking to Alexis, I'm talking to the club. It's a different goal, right? Which is break even, make sure the money is being made. But at the same time, budget, blah, 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 right? If you want to throw a party and you want to do it, do it. I did it for so long. I used to work at a fucking Black Brick in Midtown, and I was a shitty little waitress, and I was so mean to people, and they fired me, and then they fired me from Tutu Taco, and then they fired me from this other place, and I was just trying to make enough money to throw my gay raves, right? And whatever, I fucking did it, and I had so much fun, and I would never trade it for anything else, like budget aside. But it is important to still know your goal, right? So once I started, just like more people means more money, more things, right? So I was very grateful to have met Lily Villanueva from Red Bull, who's not in Miami anymore, but great gal. She taught me so many things. And again, language, right? Not sponsor me. Sponsor me sounds like you want money, which is what we want, yeah. But you want to, switch the words around. I need support. How can you support me? Right? How can you support me? Right? It's not money directly, but it's like infrastructure, product, like, so don't be afraid to look beyond dollar signs, look beyond like infrastructure and what else you could potentially, get from a sponsor that could help you, maybe make your event a little bit better. And, I think there's there's various ways, and, I think marketing is super important. So I would set aside a really big chunk of your event for marketing, meaning your assets. Is your flyer super duper slay? Like, is it the most iconic thing Miami has ever seen? Like, is it impactful? What is it giving? Like, oh my God, like people are looking at it, so it's like they want to go to your party, obviously. So don't skimp out on the marketing. You want to make sure the marketing is really, really good, and it's like interesting and intriguing, and when it comes down to budget, and then set aside a little budget for, some girls and some drag queens and some people that are gonna show up, and, you need to like give it a flair, like you
Bring cash.
Yeah, right? So, you're gonna have pole dancers, what are you gonna, so, and then sometimes, Alexis will be like, Gami, you are literally, what the fuck is this? And then, we will compromise and we'll meet halfway, It's always about like, you still have to compromise. You still have to compromise. Maybe I'm not gonna have this, I'm gonna have this,
Yeah.
Yeah. But, it's like, I think I'm in both departments, so it's a little difficult for me to talk about budget sheets when I'm very much about just like trying to conceptualize something that's like almost unrealistic sometimes. But I think we're finally getting to a place where, with the club, it's like, okay, we're meeting the numbers, and it's, it's not like super low. So that's why I'm saying marketing, budget, besides the artists, which are super important, marketing, really, really important.
Victor, you have 1 minute.
Yeah, I'll keep it short.
Go.
I'll keep it short. I want to repeat the word intention. We live in Miami, where real estate is ridiculously expensive, and that's the number one thing you need. We all have music. We all listen to music at home. We can put on our headphones. We can play it when we're hanging out with our friends. But a gathering requires space, and so you're almost in this like adversarial relationship with money, because the space is always like the most immediate expense. And that's why people turn to doing things either illegally or in legal gray areas. And that's how a lot of events start. If your intention is to create something new, there's no way around that, right? If you're working with new sounds that, you don't know if there's an audience for them, or if you do, it's a small audience, or other types of experimentation with the format of the party or what have you. You just have to accept that you're going to lose money. And
you're going to lose money, babes.
Yeah.
For the first at least 2 years, you're going to lose money.
Yeah. And even once you're like established and you're like doing better, you're going to lose money again. So, I think that's a big part of it is, the budget is really just a tool to make you understand how and where you're losing money. And then, you can fine tune from there, right? You can understand what expenses can be cut, what your fixed expenses are versus your variable expenses, so on and so forth. It's a tool. But as far as like throwing parties, when you're starting, you're gonna lose money. And so as far as community is concerned, especially for the events that are DIY, that might be existing in legal gray areas, etc., pay for your ticket. I know you're friends with the person who promoted it, or you're friends with the DJ, but you could probably get in for free, but maybe that's where you should support, because those are the places without infrastructure where a much higher proportion of your money is actually going to go to the artists that you want to support. So, yep.
Pay your dues, y'all. All right, I think we have a little bit of time for questions if anybody's got some.
Testing. Hi, this panel has been so informational. My name is Natalie, by the way. This panel has been so informational, so inspirational. I'm someone who I look up to everybody in this community. I see the parties that you throw, and they're so freaking amazing, and the community that you bring together is honestly like why I want to stay in Miami. But I do have like some difficulty sometimes. I see some things that seem a little disproportionate. Do you feel that within the community of people who are throwing events here in Miami, there is a significant wealth gap between the people who are working these events and some of the people who are throwing these events or have ownership over the venues?
Wow, big question.
Sorry.
Well, to answer your question, I threw my first party and I was homeless. Like, I didn't have a place to go. I was like showering at Ashley's house and riding the bus, and I had no money at all. I had saved up just enough money to throw a party. Really is all I wanted to do, because I was going through a lot of hardship, and I really wanted to just celebrate the few money that I could gather to bring people together. And I don't think everybody here comes from very difficult or started from very difficult financial situations, so I'm not sure about the wealth aspect of it, but in terms of ownership of spaces, only Coloma is like a club owner, but I think it's like from my knowledge, is like before I started doing any parties, I made sure to do a lot of research on who were the players at the time, and from my understanding, Miami's kind of like club culture was inherited by a lot of people who decided that had a lot of money and had a really strong hospitality group, and then kind of when that dismantled, there was a few other independent people who came together to program spaces more regularly, and they've either dispersed to do their own pop-up stuff, and Columbus had the opportunity to land that space in his journey. But really having and owning your own venue is not only a raising capital issue, it's a political and code and development that is far beyond any force of anyone who's living here. There's so much investment outside of Miami that dictates the life of venues and cultural spaces. So I think it's always important to look to your independent organizers who are fighting all odds to exist. Yeah, I'm gonna just pass it to Coloma because he's the only owner.
So it's a really good question and a really good observation, because there is a lot of owners that have gone out of business in Miami, and it's very unfortunate. I'll tell you a little story about in 2016, we really took space like cowboys. We didn't have any money, and all the money that we had from the last successful party that we did, we put it in a book bag, and we needed to do payroll for all of a sudden 100 people. And when we took the club, nobody really had faith that we were gonna be able to make it work, because it was a dying club the moment that we took it. So we took all of our money, all of it, which was like $70,000 between 3 successful entrepreneurs at the moment, put it in the book bag, and I was riding on the back of the scooter of my Italian business partner, wearing this book bag with all this cash, to take it to the club and put it in all the registers so we could start the night. And it's been a very interesting journey from 6 years ago till now. Thankfully, we've been able to employ now 3 times the people. We've been able to be financially successful through a lot of passion and love, and book a ton of artists and continue to grow in the city, and I'm very thankful for that. Our main goal is to employ people fairly, to pay artists the best rates we can pay them, to pay everybody that works in the office, which is now like 25 people, fair salaries. And being in Miami, it's a very interesting thing at the moment because we are seeing a lot of displacement of the urban core. We are seeing how a lot of the people that work for us from roles that used to be $13 an hour in security, which are now $20 an hour, $25 an hour is what we pay now for security, having to take multiple bus rides to get to work because they've been displaced from the urban core. People are in our office having to have, their second raise in a year because they're family members as much as they are employed by our company. So, space specifically is the only place that I can talk about because it's where I'm intimately intertwined as one of the owners. And we really try to be fair. We try to provide everybody's family with the best possible outcome from people's work. And if anybody here works at Space, you heard me say this in our pre-shift meetings, any action that you take in this club directly affects everybody's families. And that's how we operate. So, there's definitely a wealth gap, but it comes with the risks that we've taken as businessmen and that we continue to take. Sister touched upon a very interesting point, which is the political complications, the fight that independent venues go to be open in the city of Miami. As big as Space is, as big as the ground is, as successful as we may be or may look from the outside, we're fighting every single day. Every single day, we're fighting to protect what we consider to be one of the most important cultural pieces of our city, of not just the youth, our youth, but the continued youth of everybody here. So it's a daily fight, to be honest, with what's going on in Miami. It's a very common rumor when a space closing, or I heard space is closing. Now it's almost a joke in the office because we're like, hey, people are coming to space even more because they think it's going to close next week. And the reality of the thing is that nothing lasts forever. And yeah, it may close next week. It's not going to, as far as I know, And David, and I, and Sister, and Gami, and everybody else that is working really hard, which is over 300 people, are going to fight really hard to keep it going. But it's really more about the fight that we're in to continue to be an important place of culture, dance, fashion, coming together, community, in the middle of a city that is quickly turning into Manhattan, San Francisco. I mean, we see it with where rents and prices of real estate are going. Being down the street from here is going to be a fight. And the only way for us to fight it is by coming together as a community, and for us who are the leaders at the top to be as financially responsible and disciplined as possible, to have a healthy financial situation with the club so that we could fight the fight that we're facing.
Hello. Hello. Just to go off of what Coloma was saying, the wealth part, babe, like even running a club is not the easiest thing, running a DIY space. I mean, I remember hearing from Victor and Tara and Styler being like, we're barely making rent this month. And, you know, that was, mind you, 4 people coming together to try and like operate
We
this
never made
space.
rent.
We never made money. You know, you barely
Cleaning
stood
the
afloat.
toilets
And, you know,
for
that's,
you.
going back to like Miami, the audience, like we only have a pool of ravers and dancers that go out and nightlife people that are constantly, so it's although some of these people might have some money to put down, they're working their freaking ass off to try and even operate these spaces and these parties and these things like that sometimes barely break even. The market here is extremely hard, like, and I know this because of spreadsheets. Like, we sometimes just about break even, so it's like the wealth part. It's like it's a little tricky because like I'm broke, you know. So it's like I'm not over here throwing these like sick parties and just like running in money. It's like music and clubbing is not an easy job, you know, and space is staying afloat. And I understand it's super difficult. And these institutions that we all see, Trezor, Berghain, Bassiani, whatever, are barely making their rent, trust me. And you might be like, oh, they must have money to be operating these huge spaces. Okay, but they're barely staying afloat, you know? And it's a shame to see that, you know, even the wealthy people are opening venues, they're closing, you know, like Rosa's, ATV, all these venues, we're missing venues, we need more things, and that's a proof to show that it doesn't matter if you have money, like your venue can still shut down, your party can still shut down, your rave, etc. So, I mean, I think you just have to work your ass off. You just keep working. It doesn't matter if you're wealthy or if you're broke or whatever, you just have to keep doing it, you know, and keep trying.
Crypto. That was a joke.
I will say though, I mean, it's probably safe to assume that it's a hell of a lot easier for people who have investment capital. Like, I think that goes without saying. I also think it goes without saying that you're right, and the vast majority of people who own clubs there is wealth disparity. You know, I think there's an important distinction to be made between people who are promoters and people who are club owners. Most of the people on this panel are promoters. Some people, you know, collect money in various different ways from parties. Sometimes it's a sort of stipend, sometimes it's a percentage, or sometimes people are just employed by the clubs. So yeah, I think, you know, it is still important to acknowledge that like some people are like, whether there's precarity at the level of the club continuing to operate in an extremely aggressive real estate market, there's still people taking home paychecks that inform their quality of life. And most of the people up here probably are not taking home the biggest paychecks. So I think that these are important things to talk about. And yeah, like I said before, throwing parties, especially on a DIY level, you're not gonna make money.
Last question, and then we're gonna all go outside and continue the conversations out there. So last question here.
Firstly, I want to
You can use this one.
check. Yeah. Firstly, I want to thank every single one of the panelists. You all are extremely inspirational to even outsiders looking in. I want to get from you guys what your ideal or dream ecosystem is for Miami, whether it be in all mediums, music, journalism, infrastructure. What do you want to see develop, even from younger people, starting their own orgs, to help that ecosystem?
Ashley, kick it off.
God, I need more time to think. But I think what comes to mind is I think Miami would thrive if artists didn't have to leave to actually kick off their career or make money or experiment. So, sorry, can y'all hear me? Okay. So I think just having access to more support, more funding, whether through grants, whether through collaborative spaces, co-working spaces. Yeah, I don't know. My brain is kind of just like going all over the place, but I think just having more infrastructure for the people who live here to be able to do what they want to do and not have to worry about paying rent, not have to worry about feeding their kids the next day or like paying for gas. I think because a lot of us are in survival mode, we don't always get the chance to actually do the things we want to do the way we want to, and a lot of us have to leave or, you know, go just figure out what that looks like outside of Miami. So I think, yeah, just more collaboration, more resources for artists, more space to experiment. Yeah, that's what comes to mind.
For me, it's just like a general vibe check. I think like there's so many people, like not only who are participants in this particular scene, but just in Miami in general, that I don't know, just like have lost connectivity of just being a person. It's like, it's cool that we do parties. It's kind of like this glamorous thing, being an artist, but you know, you could do none of that. Like, you're like a living, breathing person who lives in a great ecosystem in Florida. If you've never been to a spring in Florida, please go. Like, connect with just being a person and your human experiences and having that self-awareness that no matter in what sector of your life, whether you're an occupation or, you know, you're going out, just realizing that every person you have contact with, you're gonna make an impact, whether a subconscious one or a conscious one, and just being open to genuine connectivity. And you'd be surprised what the spectrum of what support can be. It could just be like, hey, I see what you're doing and it's great, you should keep doing what you're doing. Or like, hey, I really believe in you. I know that you're not seeing the results that you want, but you're gonna get there. Like, just more, I like
love.
Positive feedback and love, yeah, I think is like really what people need. And just like stop for a second on like what your ambitions are, what you're trying to get out of a conversation, or what your expectations of the music, or like just like all that, it's like all bullshit. So it's just like, I think it's just like genuine just vibe check for me is.
Yeah, I'm with that too. Less internet, more in person, more hugging. I think as a promoter, one of the main things that I've always done is hug people. Ask people how their week was. We're losing a lot of that because we're gaining so much internet. Nothing against the internet, but we have to be careful with not being balanced, not seeing each other, not touching each other, not understanding that sometimes you're going through something very difficult, and even though you have a smile, no one's really asked you, hey, how are you doing, in a profound way, in a way that you really care. I think those things are really, really important, and they lead to being in loving relationships, which is really what you need to make anything happen. And Miami is a beautiful place. Some people may be jaded by Miami, or there's some stereotypes, but I've recently had the pleasure to have the ability to travel for the first time in my life, and it shows how beautiful Miami is, and how, and I'm more grateful than ever, you know, to be in Miami, to have the opportunities that Miami gives. So I think the ecosystem is already perfect for any opportunity. We're literally in the capital of Latin America. I'm from Ecuador, and when you go to Quito, in Ecuador, people would do anything to have the opportunity to be here for just 10 minutes. They would do anything to come here and live illegally for 25 years, meaning they had nothing available to them. They would do it to be here, to have the opportunity to be here. So I think the ecosystem here is already one of the few places where the American dream, whatever that propaganda thing was, actually is still attainable, it's still possible. So it's really about talking to each other and being loving to one another for me.
Oh, yeah. And I think that is all, y'all. It's time to go drink and dance. So let's give a big round of applause. Thank you all so much for coming out. Please hang out for the bands later. Bye.